Preparing to live stream. Oh, wow, interesting.
And it's saying that we're live. It might be one of those things that has a little bit of a lag. So let's see here if I can find it. So we very well may be live right now, just so you know. I know it's like kind of, it's fuzzy. You don't really know exactly what's going on at any given time. Yeah, we're live.
We're live. Okay.
We are live.
Yeah, there is a lag. Okay, that's fine.
Okay.
Okay.
Let me pop out this chat too so I can see it. That's okay.
Oh,
People are forgiving.
That's interesting. So we're like on two screens.
Let me see. Yeah, so you can have it like that, or I think if you switch it over to like whatever the person talking is up in the upper right hand corner, I think you can switch it if you don't like that.
Okay, so there's a little bit of like, what do you call it? I needed to mute the other window. It was like talking on the other window.
Oh yeah, mute that because that gets real confusing because there's that timeline.
So I was like, I'm timeline jumping.
I'm lost in space.
I'm lost in space. Okay, hi guys.
Bear with us a little bit, guys. It's just the Zoom thing is a little bit weird. It's a little bit cumbersome, so you know it takes a little bit to get it set up the right way.
I'm glad because we were like so in it. We were having like a conversation about this topic already, and then I'm like, Rob, I think we should go live now. And then it took us like 15 minutes to figure this out. Well, it took me 15 minutes to figure this out. But
and it's not Reem's fault. It's just it's weird. So you guys should all send letters to YouTube asking them to create some sort of creator-based streaming capability so that people can collaborate and talk together instead of having to use Zoom.
Yeah. So then the chat is going to be a little bit delayed and all of that stuff.
Yeah, they're about a minute or a minute and a half delayed.
Yeah, that's so awkward. But you know what?
I know, it is a little bit awkward.
We go with it. That's okay.
We will roll with it.
All right. That's awesome. So welcome, guys. And if you guys are not following Rob at Robstarot, please do that right now.
Oh, thank you.
At Rob Tarot, not Robstarot. Is it Rob's plural?
Robstarot, yep.
Okay.
You got it.
Robstarot, okay.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Now, so do you want to tell me like, oh, now it's telling me your meeting has started on my phone. Zoom's like awkward. I'm like, what is this? It's Zoom. Zoom's like, start your spiritual talk meeting. I'm like,
already doing it, Zoom. Shut up.
Doing it. Okay, so I'm gonna have Rob take you through his kind of just like introduction on how we came to this topic and why we're talking about this today. And then we will just free flow into this discussion and also answer some of your questions because I'm sure you guys have experienced what we have been experiencing. So this is a very constructive discussion, constructive conversation. Please have an open mind. Please, no judgment, or Patrick is going to block you. Rob, I'm going to block you. This is the time of sacred rage. And I think we're all feeling this power within us of independence, and we're all rising. So this is not the place, especially today.
That is very well said. I thought it was interesting. So we've kind of been talking about this a little bit among ourselves as of late, just because I feel like there is a lot of agitation in the collective, and so I think it's kind of caused people to be a little bit agitated, and it's kind of brought out some of the not necessarily the best qualities in people. And while we can have like a strong understanding for that and a sense of empathy for that, right, some certain behaviors kind of need a level of correction. And so that's something that we've been talking about Reem and I and some others as well. And I think you guys have probably have noticed that Cindy has been talking about it quite a bit too, like having kind of these not so gracious encounters with people, and kind of finding like what is the middle ground between having that level of empathy for other people where it's like you're still treating them with respect and kindness, but at the same time too still holding your own space and having that sense of self-advocacy. And it's like it's kind of a fine line to walk. But I would say what really kind of pushed the topic for me as of late is that I've kind of been noticing it among some of my viewers who I've been talking to. They've been going through similar things, and they've been saying, "Man, it's like, I don't really know like what the line is of me, standing up for myself versus being too heavy-handed and kind of going a little bit nuclear." And I think that a lot of that gets kind of muddled when we talk about like integration of the shadow. That's one of those things, like one of those topics. I don't know what your experience has been with that, Remy, but like this whole idea of integration of the shadow, it's one of those things that people say all the time and nobody really has a freaking clue what that actually means.
Well, I think we should get into that for sure.
Yeah, and that's kind of how I look at it, right? Like, and I look at the shadow as being not like is this necessarily mystical thing that we're completely like mystified by, but the shadow being those aspects of ourself that aren't necessarily socially acceptable. And so I can kind of give you an example of this from my from myself. So those of you who view my channel know that I put out a recent post about somebody, kind of doing some religious shaming on me on a video. And I had reacted to that person with I think with a pretty fair amount of self-restraint. I know a lot of people probably thought that the response that I had made to this person, maybe came off as kind of snide, but I didn't really feel like I had any sort of maliciousness in my heart when I did it. But the backlash that I got from other people for kind of standing my ground. And so if I can kind of just give you a little bit of an idea of what this person was saying, it was very much like religious shaming, like I'll pray for you, like kind of going down that road. And I just kind of made this response of like I will pray for you then to not have this religious superiority complex. And the backlash that I got from that from some people of like, wow, Rob, that really shows the kind of person who you are. Like you're not a high vibe person, and you put conditions on other people to behave just for your comfort. Like, wow, that's not very enlightened or very spiritual. And that like that really kind of clicked for me as, wow, we really need to have a talk about this kind of stuff, because if we're going to demonize claiming your own space, standing up for yourself, self-advocacy as being something that's low vibrational or negative or low vibe or whatever, that we've got somehow we've got our terms wrong, we've got our priorities wrong.
Yeah.
And I know you've kind of had some experiences with that too, Remy. So, like even case in point, and not to speak for you, but when we kind of first mentioned this last night, I was watching your video from the other day, and you're having like this beautiful conversation about like the empowered feminine. And I'm sorry, can I swear on your channel?
Yes.
Okay, so some fucking guy says, like, let me get your number, baby, or something like that. And you're talking about the empowered feminine, and you're like, and your face was just, well, like, what is this?
Like, do I look like I'm on YouTube that I'm on live to accept a date? Like, do I look like logically? Like, think logical for a second. Like, am I going to say yes to someone on the internet that I have no idea of? Like, just come from a logical place. So it just irritated me. And so right then and there, I'm channeling Goddess Ningal, and I'm channeling Goddess Nana Ishtar. And this frequency right now, the feminine rising, is all about standing up for yourself and saying, fuck no. Saying no. So it's like, come at me appropriately, and come at me when the place is correct, when the place is right, when the environment is right, and read the room. Like, feel out intuitively where I am as a woman and where I am in my life and my energy. If you don't have that, just don't come at me at all. So that's something that I guess as a woman, like, it's very different for a man on YouTube, but as a woman, like, that I'm sure like Lauren experiences as well. Like I feel like women experience that differently on YouTube. And I know actually Russell has experienced some women coming at him from an angle that is quite disrespectful as well. And very, like, they're very forthcoming. And it's just like, where do you get this idea from? And it just makes no sense. So I feel like this energy right now that we're in is we need to claim our space. We need to defend ourselves. And this is our right. Like, this is our divine right. And so for anyone to come back to us and say, oh, you are spiritual, you must not be spiritually enlightened, you must be a horrible person for you to react and to get triggered and all of that, you like, we're definitely mixing up terms, as you had perfectly put it. So I mean, this is the rise right now, and we have every right to be here and to claim our space. And not only claim our space, we're building a community. So when I see a comment on my community page or on your community, on your YouTube channel or anyone's, and it's disrespectful, I have the responsibility to say, like, that's not okay on here, because I'm protecting not only myself, but I'm protecting the community that we're building, because that puts a damper on the energy right away. And someone who's in a bad place came to a reading to get some sort of clarity, and then they read a comment and it's just like, you know, it hits them in the gut. You don't know how your comments actually affect other viewers that are here for a good space, because they don't have anything else or anywhere else to go to. So I feel like I'm a mother, like trying to like protect my group, my family. So that's like the space that I'm coming from right now too.
Yeah, you know, and I think that that's such a beautiful way to look at it too. That it's not just simply, you know, I think if we wanted to talk about what I would consider to be low vibrational, is that if somebody says something and it somehow offends your sense of ego, and then that causes you to you know, like seek retribution, like you're trying to hurt them back, or you know, something like that. That to me isn't. We have to have some kind of level of self-restraint, and that, you know, like that's essentially what makes us human, is the fact that we have some kind of level of self-restraint and some level of impulse control. But that to me is kind of the essence of shadow integration. Because let me tell you, it's like I kind of look at my shadow sometimes. I know you like Lord of the Rings too. Sometimes, like, my shadow, the sense that I get is that somebody says something that triggers it, and my shadow turns like straight up orc. It's like man flesh. You know what I mean? And I have to be like, okay, I have to come from the higher self, you know, and kind of be, okay, well, so let's have a talk about what it is that you just said. That was a terrible thing. So it becomes kind of a conversational thing, but the idea is that when the shadow, or that sense of your anger, kind of builds up within you, it's just kind of letting you know that something is wrong, and you got to honor that. It's not the fact that we suppress that, because that is the problem. And actually, that's a big part of what in my mind is completely wrong with the world, is because a lot of people suppress their anger. And I mean, like, especially in the States, that, you know, that why do you think we have so many damn school shootings and things like that? You know, because you have people who are, you know, young people who are indoctrinated to, you know, kind of have like this sort of, what would you say, like this docility, turn the other cheek sort of mentality in the face of things like bullying and so on and so forth. So then think about that, like a whole lifetime of anger unexpressed, and then all of a sudden it's like volcanic. It's just a pure volcanic eruption, and then they just go absolutely ballistic. So the point is that it's actually really kind of an imperative to not completely, you know, just like dismiss toxic behavior. We have to say something about it for our own health, but also for the health of others too, so people know that that's okay, that you shouldn't sit there and just kind of endlessly take crap until you blow. That's terrible. That's kind of how the world has gotten to the point in which it's gotten, and why people are so damn angry.
Yeah. I do want to talk about shadow integration. I feel like this is such a really good topic, and I've been wanting to talk about it for quite some time, because it's very misunderstood in the spiritual community. And people that claim that they've done shadow work, I don't know about you, ever since I've done my shadow work, I can see other people's shadows. And I can understand who they are collectively. And I can see their shadow. I could see it. I could feel it. And I wasn't able to see that until I was able to see mine. And I had to meet my shadow where it stood. And I needed to look at it in the face, and I needed to love it. I needed to accept it. And I actually see my shadows as demons. And people also misconstrue demons, because we're here, we're talking about love, we're talking about light, but we're also talking about darkness, the primordial dark matter consciousness out there. The whole universe is created out of chaos, out of dark matter. So even Mother Earth is light and dark. Okay, we have storms, we have crazy weather. That is the dark side of Mother Earth. So because the universe is made up of like that, because the earth is made like that, so are we. It's within our molecules, it's within our spirit, it's who we are. And so I see my shadows as demons, and they're here to help me. They're here to protect me. They're here. So when I come out, when I feel like I need to defend myself, and who's the, I don't know why her name is getting away from me. The goddess in the Bible that's looked at as a demon. I don't know why it's.
Oh, was it Lilith?
Yes. So yeah. Thank you. I don't know, for some reason I was like, oh, what's your name? Goddess Lilith. She is the one that has actually been coming forward to me when I was doing my shadow work, because it's my demon. And so when I come out and when I stand in my space, stand in my independence, speak my truth, that's my demons. And people do not like that, because they haven't faced their demons. They look at that as evil. They look at that as, oh, that's wrong. That is demonic. You're an evil person. You must be possessed. When I first came on YouTube, that's the very first messages and comments that I was getting from people, is that I was possessed by the devil. And I was like, oh, okay, well, that's really scary. I actually didn't even entertain them. I just blocked them. They ended up actually like stalking my channel, starting more YouTube accounts and commenting back and forth every time I would block them.
Yep.
So from my perspective, it's like you have that all, again, the terminology and the knowledge mixed up, because the way I see my shadow is a demon. So the fact that I'm out here, I'm standing my truth, I'm standing my ground, you see my demons coming around, and it's standing right in front of you, it's staring at you in the face, and you don't like it. You think it's scary, you think it's evil, you think it's this and that, when all I'm doing is standing my ground and claiming my space and say, you can't talk to me like that.
Yeah, so good.
At me like that. It's not right at all. So I think shadow work is so important, because you need to get to know your demons. You need to get to know the shadows that stand behind you, because they're there to protect you. They're there to help you. They're there to integrate with you, because they're part of who you are. Get to know them. Get to know that aspect of yourself. Heal that aspect of yourself, because I'm telling you right now, it's been waiting for you to love it. It's been waiting for you. It's been waiting for your love. So once you love it, once you accept it, it's there to help you. It's there to push you forward. It's also there to help you push you outside of your comfort zone and push the boundaries, and to push back at people that come at you. And that is your divine right. So your shadow is not an evil. It's not an evil entity. It's there to protect you. It's there to push back when someone's pushing at you. And again, that's your divine right.
Agreed. I think, and I can see why it happens to people. And so I think it's kind of an important thing to say that I have some understanding for why people find themselves in the position that they find themselves in, and why they get so confused. And for me, like a perfect example of this is grade school, like being a child. I'll never forget. I was in 4th grade, and there was this boy, and he was just a little tyrant. And I I have the utmost empathy and honestly sympathy for him, because as an adult, I later found out that that person, like their parents were divorcing, and he was, basically he was a traumatized child, and so he was acting out. But at the same time too, his behavior was really out of hand, and he was a bully, and he used to hurt people on the playground and all that kind of stuff like that. And I'll never forget that, one day he was picking on me, and so I hit him as hard as I could in the face, and I took him down. And it was one of those things where I got in so much trouble for doing that, right? That it was like, oh my gosh, I stood up for myself and I got in trouble, even though it was like the teachers and the the school staff and stuff like that knew that this kid was just like the bane of every other fourth grader's existence, right? And then I stood up and hit him, but then I got in just tremendous amounts of trouble. And you can kind of see why that's such an issue in our socialization, is that we're taught that it's like when you finally do stand up for yourself that you're doing something wrong, right? So I think that that's a big part of where we get screwed up, because there's a couple of different ways in my mind, that I think of it as how we get screwed up. One of which I think is when authority figures tell us that it's wrong to stand up for yourself. So we're told by authority figures. I think also in our spiritual traditions, there is a very what would you say, like there's kind of this turn the other cheek paradigm, or like the parables of Buddha sitting on the lotus and people spitting in his face and him having no reaction, and so on and so forth. Not to say that a person may not be able to be so integrated that things like that could happen to them and that they wouldn't be angry. That's a real possibility. But we also have to recognize the fact that a lot of these stories are also kind of influenced by society and what's healthy for society, right? And so there's a lot of conditioning that goes into our socialization that tells us that, like, be passive, you know what I mean? Like, be a pacifist, don't fight, that's a bad thing. If you do that, you're going to go to hell or something like that. But those ideals are really not practical for the common person. At the same time, too, I'm not trying to advocate violence and trying to say that, we need to approach things like a fourth grader on the playground and hit the bully in the face, but we can verbally hit that bully in the face if it's in the workplace or something like that, and say, hey, you have to come at me right, or I'm not going to talk to you anymore. Like those kind of things are just fine, even if your inner shadow is saying mad flesh.
Yeah. Hi, Lauren.
Hey, Lauren.
I definitely don't advocate violence. I think, obviously, like, two wrongs don't make a right, but I believe in standing up for yourself, and I think it's healthy. I think that's you standing up for your right, and it's your divine right. Like I said, this is sacred rage, and it's okay. And I think that in the spiritual community, it's all love and light. And I saw a few comments there of, someone saying, oh, it's all love and light. Darkness is a facade. It's not a facade. Like I said, this is dark matter consciousness. Dark matter consciousness, okay? The universe is made out of darkness. The light comes from it, okay? And the earth, Mother Earth is light and darkness. That is why we are also light and darkness, because we come from it. This is love, light, and darkness. And I think that we need to start making that known. We need to start normalizing this in the spiritual community. It's not all love and light. You don't heal in the light, you heal in the darkness. Okay, that's why it's called shadow work. That's why you need to go to the depth of yourself and heal that aspect of yourself. So it's not all love and light. It cannot be. If you think it's all love and light, then you're in a facade. That's an illusion. It's not all rainbows. It's not all butterflies. Look outside, there's a storm coming. Okay, that's exactly what happens. So you need to embrace the storm as well as the sunshine. Okay, it's both. It's duality, it's polarities, and it all exists within you. So embrace that and be happy about that, because that's the truth. And I don't know why there's so much emphasis on love and light will carry you through everything. And it's not true. And exactly, Lauren, they're light blind, or Russell put it so funny. It's rainbow farts. It's they're just rainbow farts. They're so caught in this facade. They're caught in this illusion, and it's like rose-colored light-colored blindness. There are rose-colored glasses. You can't see the truth when you're in that love and light vibration. You need to embrace the darkness. You have to embrace your demons. You have to embrace that aspect of yourself. And again, like going back to when you were as a child, it's like that innocence about you, and it's like that primordial frequency of like, oh my God, I have to fight back. See how natural it is? Like, you're a child, you're innocent, you don't comprehend anything else other than I need to protect myself right here, right now. It's natural, it's part of life. But as you get older, like, you understand that violence is not the answer. You're not going to fight someone that's fighting with you. But I believe in constructive defense is almost like what I want to say. Like, make it constructive. I want to make sure that the other person, when I stand up for myself on YouTube and I see a comment that's attacking me, I want to make it constructive. So I'm defending myself in a constructive way. I want to be able to make it a teaching moment for the other person to say, okay, I crossed a boundary. I want to apologize. This is not okay. Does that ever happen? No. It doesn't happen. I've had no one that has come at me that has actually apologized. No one. Not one person. So even though I try to make the effort of being constructive, no one sees it that way. So I can only hope, because that's my intention. When I stand up for myself, my intention is to make it constructive for the other person, to say, maybe I was wrong, or maybe I should apologize. But none of them have ever done that. My very first comment, other than the whole like religious, I'm possessed by a demon comment, it's just ridiculous. Just ridiculous. Was someone saying that they were actually mocking and they were mocking me. And that hit my insecurity, because that's part of my insecurity, is my voice. Am I articulating correctly? Do I sound too valley girl? Am I saying like too much? Am I articulating the energy correctly? So it's always been an insecurity of mine of sounding mature, of sounding put together, and sounding, proper to articulate the energies that are running 100 miles a minute inside of my head. What do I say? How do I say it? And so this person was mocking me in a comment, and it hit me so hard. And I actually started crying. And I think that was the point where I was just like, maybe I shouldn't be doing YouTube. Like, is this how people really see me? They see me as this valley girl saying like, do I say that? Because I don't see myself in the moment of channeling. I'm not so conscious of my verbiage. I'm not so conscious of how I articulate or pronounce things. Sometimes I make up words and I'm like, is that right? Like, is that the right word? And so like I pause myself and I'm like, what am I saying? Because I just like the energy that I have no recollection of like who I am in the moment. So when this person said this to me, it literally broke me. It hit my insecurities so much. And I posted it, and I vented about it. And, the response from people was, just forget about it. It's okay. You're doing great. Da, 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 da. It was very supportive. But at the same time, I felt very dismissed of my actual feelings in that. And so actually Stan reached out to me, and she was like, you're doing a good job. Like, she actually walked me through it, and I was grateful. I didn't know you or Russell at that time. So I was able to like pick myself back up, and honestly, still to this day, it's something that I'm very insecure about. It's still something that when I'm in my channeling, I'll stop myself and I'll say, oh, am I being too repetitive? Oh, am I saying like too much? Oh, did I say this correctly? Am I sounding too much of a valley girl? So these are the things that still block me. And I feel like that person could have said something in a nicer way to me if this is really how they felt. They could have used their comment to be more constructive, as constructive criticism, because I do take constructive criticism. I'm not a person that's like all about me and I don't want anyone else to tell me about me. I'm open. I'm here to grow and I'm here to learn and I'm here to heal. So I'm in no way, shape, or form perfect, and I never claim to know anything. I don't know anything. Okay. So I hope that that person learned something from that. And I actually didn't respond to them. I ended up just blocking them because I didn't know what to say. How do I respond to that? I wish that they could have said it in a more constructive way to me, but they ended up using really hurtful words and they were just mocking me the entire time. And that was probably one of the worst ones I've ever received because it was very personal to me.
Well, and that's so sad to me because I think, first of all, I think for anybody who channels or anybody who does intuitive work, they know that it's a subconscious process. And so really kind of when you're pulling messages through, for the most part, the conscious mind kind of takes a bit of a back seat. And so it's whatever comes through is just the way it comes through. And I like to think of it as, not to go too much into how I look at it theoretically, but I kind of look at our central nervous system as being kind of like an antenna for our consciousness, right? For our conscious mind. And so I look at it as picking that up when spirit's talking through us, when the ancestors, when our guides, so on and so forth, are kind of using that channel, right? Channel, like you as a channel, and that information's coming through. It's just, you know what I mean? Like it's coming through very, very raw. And I can tell you that 99% of the time, I can't remember a damn thing that I said. I don't know what the hell I said. People will tell me all the time, like, oh, you had this reading and it was really, really profound. And I'd be like, I wish I could remember it.
Yeah, I don't remember that either.
I also want to mention too, that I love that San showed up, and San from San Tarot, if you're not familiar with her, who I feel like San has to be like the patron saint of tarot readers because she showed up for all of us whenever we felt down or sad. Or, it's like she's so good. She's just such a lovely, lovely person, and just like shows up to encourage. I'm so happy that she did that because the thing that you have to remember too is that person's showing up to watch your reading, right? So that person can't get their own messages themselves, so they're showing up and expecting other people to give them their messages, to check their voicemail for them, their spiritual voicemail, and then they're going to give you a hard time about it. It just kind of blows my mind, but and I can understand just blocking that person, but I think you would have been well within your right to say something like, hey, like you don't talk to people like that. If somebody's providing you something for free, and even if they're not, like that just doesn't matter. Like have some respect for another human being. But I think the important thing is that I'm sure that when you had expressed that, because I actually kind of remember hearing about that too, or seeing one of your posts or something like that, talking about that person putting that out there, and if I remember correctly too, I think you got a fair amount of blowback from people on top of that of just like, well, wow, Remy, should you really be upset about that? And it's like, well, it's not about whether or not I should be upset about it. I am, and so that's just the feeling that I have, and I'm not in control of my feelings. And I love that when you were talking about it a moment ago, you were talking about it as a storm, right? And that's how I look at it. My guide has kind of explained it to me as the turbulence of the heart, right? And that's kind of a way to look at it. And I think that as we go through the shadow integration, whether you look at it as shadow integration, healing the inner child, I think we're just describing the same process, truthfully, right? Like kind of undoing that socialization to accept yourself as a human being. It's like you have to kind of have that acceptance of the turbulence of the heart, of the storms of your heart, because they happen and they're natural and they're like weather. And if somebody says something that triggers something in you, it's like it's completely within your right to voice that and to express that, instead of the expectation of just being you to just suppress that and shove that down and to just take it. That's not right. So I mean, a way that I've kind of thought of it too is that I think that sometimes the idea of the ascension process is something that gets us screwed up too, because we, and maybe that's part of the reason why we think of it as, going up, or as it being about only being about the light and not having anything to do with the darkness. But to me, I kind of think of it as expansion of consciousness, right? And so if consciousness is expanding, it means that it's expanding upwards, but also downwards too, right? So the more love and light that you feel, the more upset and turmoil and tumultuous you're gonna experience too. It's just that expansion. So there's nothing wrong with feeling upset when somebody does something that makes you feel upset.
Wow, that's so perfect. I actually want to. It's reminding me of a card, so I'm gonna just show it.
Do you think?
Oh, that's perfect how you said that. I really like that.
Oh, thank you.
Me of this card. It actually came up yesterday in Goddess Ningal. That's so brilliant.
It's all connected.
Rob is brilliant, people. Everyone listen to Rob. Oops.
Don't do it. Don't listen to me. You'll end up just like me.
That. Right?
Yep.
That's exactly what I saw as you said that. It's like this expansion of consciousness, not only up, but down. And so this is like the upper world into spirit, and this is into the lower world, or the underworld, so to speak. So I love how you said that, because this card came out. Actually, someone also commented how it's like we're opening space. We're opening space for different dimensions because we're channelers of energy. So it's like we're opening and we're allowing for more space of these energies from the spirit world, from the upper world, but as well as the underworld and the lower worlds to be channeled through. And that's perfectly said. I love that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, brilliant.
And I think, I think that part of our human nature is this idea that we need to make things categorical, like this is good, this is bad. But like in nature, we forget that in nature, none of that exists. Like none of those paradigms, none of those dichotomies exist. It goes in both directions, and both are equally welcomed at the table. And I think we kind of have to move away from that idea of, certain energies are good energies, other energies are bad energies, because I think, and this might be a little bit of a point of philosophical debate for some people, because I know some people really buy into that that spiritual idea of I control my emotions, right? Like how many times have you heard somebody say, I choose to be happy? Well, it's like yes, a person does choose to be happy, but you don't choose your feelings, and that I think screws people up a lot, right? And so they think that perpetually they need to be in a state of bliss. So like that love and light, I feel blissful, I feel happy, so on and so forth. Like I am, I'm gonna return to my lotus flower and and sit and like that kind of thing. Like that whole like kind of even in the mystical shaman, right? It's like they kind of get trapped in this beauty way paradigm.
Right.
But ultimately, like nothing is beautiful forever. When you look at nature and how nature operates, it's it's a little bit gritty out there. Like you go out into the woods, it's a little different.
Yeah.
The divine has different things in mind.
It's like a reality check. Like you have to get into that reality, honestly.
Yeah. And I think that the last thing that I'm really going to say on it too is that I know a couple people have mentioned even in the chat, and I feel the same with this too, is that connecting with some of those energies that we kind of look at as being dark or being negative or being low vibe or so on and so forth. Those really are in essence the impulses that are going to protect you. And we don't have that same type of judgment when we see it in nature. So if you see an animal with its back, in the corner or something like that, usually that animal is going to, rely upon its instincts, and there's like that expression of anger, which they're not removed from. But for us, again, because as a product of socialization, it's like we kind of lose touch with that. And I think the thing that I really want people to recognize is that if you disconnect from those impulses, from that instinctual drive to protect yourself and to advocate for yourself, which is in all of us, because we all experience anger in some way, shape, or form, that it's like you're kind of losing your greatest advocate. Like that's truly that's your backbone. You know what I mean? And it might feel uncomfortable. Like nobody really enjoys an anger response. Like there's an adrenaline response, the endocrine system gets involved. It's like heart starts beating, sometimes your fist might shake, but recognize that that's just kind of like your inner being standing up for you and giving you the juice to fight for yourself.
Yeah, 100%. That's how anger feels for me. But you pick up on my anger. My throat closes up when I get angry, because it's like I really need to speak my truth. Sometimes like I hold it in, and when I hold in my anger, my throat tightens up. And you felt it a few times with me, and it's interesting like how we're psychically linked like that.
Yep. Psychic friends, dude.
I get angry and I get very frustrated, my throat closes up, and that's an indication to me that I need to open that channel, and I need to speak my truth. I need to talk about it. I need to stand up for myself and defend myself. So that's a really beautiful way of showcasing anger, and anger can be healthy. A lot of people demonize their emotions, and I don't think any emotion is bad. It's the way of how you perceive it to be so. And I've been saying this for a while, that your thoughts direct you, but your emotions navigate you. So emotions are meant to be explored. All emotions are meant to come up to the surface for us to feel, and every emotion is valid. And it's really helping you to navigate your experiences better for growth. So the more that you suppress your anger, the more that you're suppressing yourself. And like you said, you're suppressing your best advocate, which is you. So you might as well let it come up to the surface and let it guide you, because it's your best navigation system, and it's also your best advocate.
Exactly. And I think, and it's important to say that I feel like, and maybe we should talk about this a little bit too, about like what is a healthy expression of anger versus a toxic expression of anger. Because honestly, what we're kind of talking about when we talked about some of those comments and some of those reactions that we had gotten from other people, ultimately that's their toxic expression of anger, right? And then look at what the trigger that it provided for us in that moment. And so it is a little bit of like a fight fire with fire kind of thing. But I think also too, see that to me is kind of the choice, or that to me is what would indicate something as being high vibrational versus low vibrational, because that's the alchemy taking place in that moment. So so like you feel that sensation of anger, you feel that that storm surge in the heart, right? And it starts to kind of take you over. But I think for those people, it's like they actually kind of lose the reins in that moment, and then they have to say something to hurt, right? And that's, and we can understand that, and we can look at that, but that behavior still needs to be corrected. But that's kind of what you were talking about earlier too, was that idea that it's all on how I approach somebody about it. Do I have to be nice to them? No. Should I still be respectful and keep myself in some kind of what would you say, like hold myself to some kind of standard? Yeah, because that's your own personal integrity, and it doesn't, and ultimately, and this might sound kind of bad, but I don't give a shit about them in that moment, right? It's about my own personal integrity, me treating people the way that I feel is right, and I'm going to hold to that standard. I don't really care about their feelings. That their feelings, a lot of people say this, their feelings are none of my business. And if I get angry and I express that to them, that like, hey, you need to back off. This isn't okay how you're acting in my space. And so be it. They don't like it, you can leave, and then I'll just block you.
Yeah.
But again, I think that we want to try to keep it from being toxic. I think it's really important that when you confront somebody's behavior, you talk about the behavior. Don't go at the person, because that I think sucks. If somebody does something that you find to be upsetting or triggering, and then you say, well, you're just a piece of shit and blah blah blah, and just go off on them, like that sucks. That does not make the world a better place. You know what I mean? But if you correct that behavior and kind of leave them with a planted seed of the fact that, because believe it or not, whether or not a person realizes that seed has then been planted of like, wow, this person just kind of made me out to look sort of immature. And they can sense that, and they're going to behave differently in the future, and that's really what we ultimately want.
I mean, like that, we hope so. Like that's the goal. Again, it's like we want to be able to constructively defend ourselves and also have a constructive conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like I'm reading some of these comments and people are saying, let it go, let go. And it's just like, that's unvalidating, like that's saying just roll over. The point of this is that we stand up. This is our divine right to do that. This is why this energy right now within the collective is rising. It's to standing up for our independence. We need to start to rewrite this narrative that it's not all love and light. It's love, light, and darkness. And darkness is inclusive of this advocacy and standing up for yourself. And that's where this energy is changing and shifting into. Okay, this is what we are preparing for. This is a spiritual warfare, ultimately. It's a spiritual war. So be prepared, get ready, defend yourself, get and rise into that energy because it's changing and it's shifting. I will not roll over if someone comes and attacks me. Why on earth would I do that? Before I used to do that because I was like, you know what? I'm all love. But you know what? My darkness also comes from a place of love because I learned how to love it. So my darkness and me defending myself is coming from a place of love, no matter what. That's why I say love is light and dark. So me defending myself is my divine right, and it's the right thing to do. I'm claiming my space, and I'm not allowing anybody to come in and telling me that I'm a liar or that I'm reading energy wrong or that I'm A this, A, B this, C that, or making fun of me. Why on earth would I roll over? And in the beginning, I thought that that was the right thing to do. Block, move on, it's okay, Reem, let it go. But I learned that you have to say something for you. Like you said, you're advocating for yourself. And I'm not doing it for just for me. Like I mentioned earlier, this is for my community. This is for my family, because people come here and it's a safe space for them. Imagine if someone is having a very depressive time in their life. Imagine if someone is so down in the ruts, in like they're on their last lifeline, and they read a comment like that and it triggers them. Like this is my responsibility to keep my community safe. So if I feel attacked, I know my community is going to also get attacked, even though it's directed at me. I never know what other people are going to see when they see that comment and they get triggered by that. So again, it's like this mother frequency of like, I need to start defending not only myself, but other people. So we need to start changing this narrative of it's just all love and light. Because when I rolled over and when I let that go, I didn't feel good about myself. I started to feel like anybody can trample over me and, oh, it's okay. I have footprints on my back. Oh, I'm okay. It's okay. It's like you're
Namaste.
Thank you. Blessings to you. No. That's you. That's being inauthentic. And this whole process is about being authentically yourself. So you can stand up for yourself and it comes from a place of love. And I saw someone's comment, fuck you from love. And basically you're saying fuck you to someone and it's all love. So absolutely. And it's okay, because at the end of the day, we're not wishing ill will on someone. All we're doing is saying, you can't say that to me. That shit's not okay. And that's not allowed here. This is my space and this is my community. This is our community, excuse me, not mine. This is our community and that's not allowed here. So you need to start learning how to come correct to people, because ultimately in this space, that's not allowed. And that's okay to say. Sometimes it gets misconstrued. I find that sometimes when I respond to people, they like get more amped up in their anger and they just start to pile more and more and more energy onto, it's like they're adding more fuel to the fire. And it's like, why are you adding more fuel to the fire when I'm trying to put it out? So I don't know why that is. It's almost like you trigger them more to be more like fired up and more angry towards you for whatever reason that they're dealing with inside. And so it's like, again, it's my demon, it's my shadow that they're seeing that they don't like. People don't like the darkness when they haven't experienced it themselves. And that's the truth.
Well, and I think in a sense too that when people experience your darkness, I think it, ultimately I think a lot of people are afraid of their own darkness, and
Yeah.
so that's kind of why they put that pressure, that pressure for people, to behave in a certain way, right? Because essentially that's kind of what you're talking about, is that people are putting that expectation on how you are to conduct yourself within
Yeah.
your own space. But to me, a lot of what we're talking about, and I noticed a comment, and I'm just going to kind of, and I'm not going to talk about this person, within the comment, but I just saw somebody say something like anger is not the way. Yeah, and I think we kind of need to touch on that idea of spiritual bypassing. Like this idea that if that anger is never appropriate in any situation. I think that's exactly how we get to where we are in the like in the current paradigm, the state of the world, and why there's so much underlying unconscious agitation. I mean, I can't even drive to the grocery store without somebody like cutting me off in traffic and giving me the finger and like some kind of terrible thing at me. It's crazy, and so it's like, so why is that? And I think it's the product of long repressed anger just over a long period of time. And I understand from from like a civilization perspective that we really need to be mindful of how we're angry and so on and so forth. But that idea of anger is not the way. And that person actually kind of went on to say, that when they experience anger, they just say to themselves, this is anger. And I know like a lot of meditative traditions will say things like that, but to me the issue is that now you're intellectualizing a feeling, right? And so instead of actually feeling your feeling, which to me as a past therapist, but just as a human being, it doesn't matter what credential I have. It's the fact that if you intellectualize your feelings, you're going to screw yourself up real bad. That's like the most human thing that I can say
Yes.
about it. Because if you don't feel them, they sit dormant. And so any kind of emotion that you have that goes unexpressed, that's meant to move through you, and that's kind of a way to look at it, that you're like a channel of emotions,
Yeah.
and you just need to try and let those things free flow the best of your ability and try to manage them in healthy ways. But if you don't deal with that, that just sits dormant in you for who knows how long. And I feel sorry for the people in your life with that, and please don't take that as an offense, but ultimately what happens when people don't express it is they displace their anger. And that's exactly what I'm talking about, road rage. You know what I mean? Like somebody
Yes.
driving past you and giving you the finger and going off on you and screaming at you and all this kind of stuff like that. Are they so offended at the fact that like at your driving, or is there something else there, like this displacement of anger? The thing that's really sad about that though, and why I think this is even more important also, is that when you have unresolved or unexpressed anger, who do you take it out on? The people who you feel safest with. So you take that shit back to your family and your friends and your pets. And that's like the classic old thing, people saying that you had a bad day at work, so you go home and kick the dog. You know what I mean? Like that's exactly
Mm-hmm.
displacement of anger. And that's why it's so important for us to express it, because if we don't do that, we put it in the wrong places, and like innocent bystanders get hurt. So you have to look at like you're like the steward of your emotions, and you have to go about it in healthy ways so that it doesn't become toxic to other people.
Exactly. Express your emotions in a healthy way. And I want to talk about shaming, because I'm reading some of these comments and I don't know, I saw one about like, let me read this one quickly if I can. Every emotion is the way, but getting angry is not the way. Seeing the anger and expressing it, I don't know, it's like up there. Okay. So what I want to say is that we as a society, especially in the spiritual community, we the community that's all like love and light and namaste and let me roll over when people say bad things to me because I'm a Zen person and I'm all rainbows and butterflies, which is a facade. Like, get down to reality, people. You're shaming other people for being mad, for being angry, for being depressed. So when you're saying anger is not in the way, there's again, we need to talk about, how are you expressing anger? Are you expressing anger in a toxic way? You're bottling up and you're letting it come out in rage that is hurting yourself and other people that you love? Or are you using your anger to heal? Are you using your anger to look at where this anger is coming from? You need to look at the emotion that you're feeling and understand the root cause of it, because it comes from something. It always comes from somewhere. So look at it. That's a healthy way of looking at anger. And don't shame other people for feeling angry. So don't say anger is not the way. Which way is it? Which way are they taking anger? Are they taking this path or are they taking that path? And allow this experience to be something educational for you guys, because I can see in the comments that some of you are shaming other people for feeling angry. And that's where it starts to, like my mother frequency comes in and says, don't you dare shame other people for feeling a certain way. And the spiritual community is so good at that. And that is spiritual bypassing. And that's telling the other person that you can't feel that. Don't be mad. Don't be angry. Be happy, because we're all love and light. And it's not all love and light. If you're angry, be angry, but figure out why you're angry. You can heal that aspect of yourself that is feeling like that. If you feel like you are angry over and over and over again, it's there for a reason. There's something inside of you that's screaming out, hey, I need help. I need love. This aspect of myself needs healing. So use it as an opportunity to look at yourself and heal and grow. And we're always going to feel all of these emotions in influx. Different experiences are going to trigger our emotions in different experiences in our life in different times. I'm not saying anger is never going to be an emotion that you're not going to feel. You're going to feel angry sometimes, and it's okay. It's a matter of how do you react to it? Where do you place it? How do you manage your anger? Where's your outlet? There are some people, like, I don't know, anger management, they teach about different outlets like kickboxing or boxing, you know, like just to get that adrenaline out. That's one way, right, of getting the anger and the frustration out, but it doesn't deal with the root cause of why I'm angry. So you need to look at why you're angry and what is that trigger. And that's a healthy way of looking at anger instead of just like lashing out at people. So that person that's talking about anger is not every emotion is the way, but anger is not the way. Look at which way you want to take anger and the rest of your emotions, because someone who is sad can also be a toxic emotion. If you're sad, if you're depressed, that can also be a very toxic emotion. Every emotion can be good or bad. It's a matter of how do you let it guide you and navigate you through your experiences. I was a very sad person. Like, I was constantly sad. I was dealing with depression. I couldn't even get out of bed. I had suicidal thoughts. I didn't know where to put my depression. I didn't know what outlet. I didn't know what to do. So I was very toxic. I hurt people that I loved, my family, my best friends. I hurt them because I was hurting and I didn't know what to do with my sadness or my depression. What are you going to tell me? Sadness is not the way. Depression is not the way. Be happy. So we need to rewrite this narrative and deal. It's okay to feel angry. It's okay to feel sad. Honestly, like, it's such a, I think I did this reading, this mandala reading of teardrop healing, and I was talking about all of this in that mandala. So it's kind of like coming back up again, where your emotions are valid and we need to talk about them in the raw form, because some emotions are dark and that's okay. It's okay, and don't let anybody tell you otherwise.
Yeah, that's beautifully said. I think that's such a profound insight too, about the idea of not trying to control. I mean, ultimately, to me, it's kind of like not trying to control nature, right? So if you have emotions arise in you naturally, and you try to convolute that process by putting some type of standard or some type of what would you say, like some type of category of like, this is acceptable, that's not acceptable, you're convoluting your own natural process, and it pulls you further away from your own nature. And to me, that's a big part of the spiritual experience, right? Like when we talk about alignment, so that's a real common phrase, you know, it's like, what are we aligning to? like, are we aligning to a higher ideal? Well, I mean, if we're aligning to a higher ideal, the problem with that is that that's a conceptualization. What is a higher ideal? The ideal version of myself. What if I just tried first to align to my own natural human being and what that person feels and what that person thinks, and try to kind of connect most with my own nature. And that, I think, is the inward process, and that's what I think we're really after ultimately. The other thing I was kind of thinking about too was this idea of, everybody saying about letting it go, and this is a way of letting it go. So it's like we got to be careful sometimes with cliches and what we think cliches mean, because ultimately, yes, you're learning to let it go, but sometimes people mistake letting it go for just burying that shit and not dealing with it.
Yeah.
So. Yeah, well said, Reem. And also too, Reem, I gotta say, I give you a lot of credit for, like, just being so transparent in your own journey and talking about going through things like that. Because I know it's not easy to talk about, but I guarantee you, anybody that hears that is better for knowing that other people deal with this shit. It's not, life is not easy. I don't, again, these ideas that life is, is the, bliss and love and so on and so forth. Yeah, sure, some points of life are bliss and love and beautiful and so on and so forth, but sometimes life's a tragedy, and sometimes life is really, really rough. And it's not, and when you go through life's traumas, because I dare to say that anyone makes it through life without some type of traumatization. I mean, ultimately, we're all here living, and one day we're going to die, and not to be morbid, but everyone is going to die, what I mean? And it's traumatic. It's traumatic down here. The 3D is a traumatic place. There's going to be consequences of that trauma, and if you try to, again, spiritually bypass the, like those psychological injuries, those spiritual injuries, you're going to be worse for it, and it just creates scar tissue, and that's the thing that we want to avoid.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I feel like within the whole spirituality community, like, to think of things as always love and light, because I think that's the problem. I really do. I think the problem is that when you come into your spiritual journey, you look for a community, you look for like-minded, kindred spirits that are on the same path as you, so that you're not the crazy one. Okay, so because trust me, when my first spiritual journey started to kick off the ground and kick my ass, it wasn't this like, oh, let's fall gracefully in a field of rainbows. It was not like that. It's like, let's fall right on your ass because you need to get it together, girl. And I was like, okay, spirit, like, this is like, they're kicking my ass. So it's like the notion of this whole like spirituality trend is like, welcome to spirituality where it's all love and light. It's giving you a false hope. It's giving you a false reality. So when people come on my channel and like I'm reading for either their love life or their spiritual growth or what have you, and people are saying, my life's not like that, it's not going to happen for me, da 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 da. It's like, because that's not real life. Real life is not love, light, rainbows, butterflies, and everything. Let me rephrase that. Love is everything, but your life is not going to be sunny and rainbows 24/7. So the spiritual community is actually creating a facade that life is supposed to be lived like that. No, life is supposed to be experienced as raw. That's for me, the spiritual journey is about experiencing life raw. And spirituality is to be in the presence of divinity. And the presence of divinity is light and it is dark. And until you get that through your consciousness, unless you get to that acceptance, that's when you're really going to understand who you are as a person. And that's when you're going to start integrating your shadow on it. That's what I feel is the problem. A lot of it is because the spiritual community wants to bypass the whole darkness, want to sweep it under the rug and say, it's all good. All you need is light. Don't worry about it. You'll be fine. Well, guess what? You can't heal in the light. You heal in the dark. So if you're on here and you need healing, I'm telling you right now, that's not the light. You got to go into the dark. And that's where you're going to find your light. in the darkness. And that's how you heal. And that's how you're going to be able to speak your truth and come up and learn and teach other people. And I think that's why I'm so transparent. I'm so transparent because I can see other people and they're suffering and how they're hurting. And so it hurts me when other people in the community are saying, oh, don't worry about it. You're going to get your abundance next month. Don't worry about it. It's like, don't say that. Don't say your abundance is coming next month when you're saying this person's in trauma. Right. Like a person's reading about trauma and pain and saying, don't worry about it. Your abundance will come. No, that's not how it works. That's not how it works. So it really pains me. And that's why I want to talk about my experience, because my experience was to get in the dark, to literally, my spirit team smacked me on my ass and said, you got to get it together, girl, because you need a wake up call. I used to wake up at 5:55 in the morning every day before I knew what synchronistic numbers were. I literally threw my phone across the room one morning and I said, what the heck do you guys want from me? I didn't know anything about anything at that time. And to wake up at 5:55 every day for about a week, I was just like, what? What is this shit? And then one day I decided to look up the number 555 and it was like, do you want change in your life? And I was like, yes. And it's like, well, you need to be willing. And I'm like, oh, okay. At that point, that's when I surrendered to spirit. And I said, fine, I surrender, whatever, I surrender. And my life changed ever since. My life was never the same, never the same.
That's an amazing story. I think of it every time, because well, obviously, right, since we're in this, I will call it an industry, even though we're kind of like anti-industry kind of people. But yeah. I think it's funny because obviously watch a lot of spiritual videos and stuff like that. So then I'll get these advertisements of some guy standing outside of a mansion or something like that, or like, look, you want to learn how to manifest this BMW or something like that. And I always sit there and think I'm just like the BMW is gonna fix the hole in your heart, you know what I mean? like here you are hemorrhaging, right? Like a broken human, and it's just like, oh, put a BMW in there, stop the bleeding. It's like it's not gonna do it. It's not gonna do it, regretfully. But I think you're completely right, because you do heal in the dark. And the thing that always stands out to me is that there's this really famous Nietzsche quote where he says something to the effect, and it's going to be a terrible paraphrase, but he says something to the effect to all my esteemed loved ones, I wish you pain and suffering and misery and so on and so forth, right? So that you could have the one semblance of meaning in life, and to know that you endure. You know what I mean? And it's like, it's so beautiful to me, because I've always looked at it this way, that it's like the blissful points are beautiful, and they're great, and yes, like we all live for those beautiful points in life. However, the pain is ultimately what shapes us and what motivates us to change and to actually do something with our life. So like even today, if I may be so bold, you and I are both sitting here probably because of our pain. You know what I mean? Like, we're not here because of of our love and light. We got guided here through our pain, and that's how spirit, in my opinion, how spirit connects with us and creates these pressure points to the point in which we actually do something with our lives. Because I don't know about you, if I didn't have that pain, I wouldn't have had much impetus for growth. Why would you grow if you feel good? So.
Exactly. And the best like creativity comes from pain. The greatest artists, they have pain. The greatest musicians write the best songs because of their pain, and they touch other people because other people have also felt that pain. And so this is about connecting with other people. And a lot of people connect because of pain. Very rarely do people connect because of, the light and the love and the happiness and all of that light-hearted energy. A lot of people connect through pain because that's the real shit. Yep. The real life. That's a big portion of life, because that's where you grow. That's how you heal. And that's how you connect to the deepest and rawest self of who you are. And that's how you connect with other people who are authentic and raw because they've gone through pain. I feel like that's where I connect to a lot with people. That's where I empathize and show compassion with a lot of people, is through the pain. And I remember like one time you were reading and saying something about how you were, you know, coming close to suicide. And I don't want to for anyone or you or anyone like
That's
that.
okay. No, you're totally okay to say that. Yep.
That pain was something that I felt because I went through the same thing. And that's how I was able to connect with you on such a raw and real level, because it's such a real aspect of yourself, and people don't talk about it, but that's really how we connect through pain.
Yeah. And you're completely fine to say anything that I've said. Yeah, I definitely have been there in really, really dark places, and I've dealt with depression for most of my life, but and not to like just try to gloss it over and again make it like this, like Russ would say, a rainbow fart. I'm not
Yeah.
trying to make it a rainbow fart, but I mean, it's just like, if I wouldn't have been there, I would have done nothing with my life. You know what I mean? Like, I really wouldn't have. And so there's kind of, to me, and that's part of the alchemization too, right? So like, I have some kind of level of gratitude for my sorrow or for my melancholy as being like this catalyst for my growth. And that's how I intellectualize it. It didn't feel good at the time. It was hell, you know what I mean? But ultimately, right, like, that's kind of the journey. And I think of that too. I was thinking of that when you were talking about how a lot of times we kind of get lured in. I say lured because I do feel like spirit lures us in.
Me too.
with like, oh, it's gonna be like, it's gonna be real great, and then they take you out back behind the shed and whoop your ass. And that's like what the ancestors do. That's my real opinion on it, because that's the way it feels. But even Corey from Founders of Light, he's going through a very, very similar process, and he just did a video yesterday of saying like, yeah, you know, I got on the spiritual path, and man, I thought it was going to be this path of beauty, and whew, did I have a rude awakening. It has been rough and tumble. And I do think that when you get turned onto that path of spirituality, that I think is the light. And that is kind of how I conceptualize the light. The light burns away like all of your misguided notions about shit. And ultimately it's a humbling experience. To me, it's about like dissolving the ego. And that's what I'm trying to say too, is that we think of, for instance, like going back to our discussion about anger, is that we think of anger as being, you know, like a product of the ego, like ego inflation, that we're trying to, you know, like gratify our own ego through our anger. No. Actually, what's happening is the light's doing its work on you and dissolving these conceptualizations about what it means to be angry, and how it's, you know, what's okay and what's not okay. You're getting more to your instinctual, natural being. Oh, gorgeous.
The dissolving.
Yeah.
See, that's exactly it, Rob. Oh, see, you're talking, and Spirit's like, go get this card. And I'm like, the dissolving light. That's exactly what it is. And look at the shadow. Look at the darkness in the back. Like, that's all the pain. That's exactly what you're saying. The light dissolves the distortions. Absolutely. I love that. I love how you said that.
Thanks so much.
And look at, like, there's actually like a person within a person. I don't know if you can see that clearly. It's like a smaller aspect of yourself like this, and then another one, and then another one.
And that to me is all just the journey of self-acceptance. Like, that's,
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of Louise Hay, if you've ever read any of her work, and really she kind of characterizes everything essentially as being a journey of self-love and self-acceptance. And that's what I think ultimately what you and I are trying to come around full circle to here, is that if it's a journey of self-love and a journey of self-acceptance, you gotta still embrace those dirty parts. You know? The parts with dirt and grime and grit.
Yeah, and to not shame them. That's something that I'm getting over, is to not shame the experiences that I have gone through. Like I for example, like, and just to, you know, on this transparency train, I had an eating disorder since I was 13 years old to the age of 20. So for a good portion of my upbringing, like my teen years, I was depressed, I was sad, and I had an eating disorder. And so if it wasn't for that experience, I wouldn't have loved my body and my beauty within. as without. I wouldn't have gained love for myself hadn't I not gone through that. And like you said, it's a very humbling experience. So all of that dirt, all of that chaos, all of that pain, I had to go through it. And coming from a Middle Eastern family, mental health is very like, it's not really known in our culture. It's seen as something that you are not meant to experience. It's just like, oh, you'll get over it, or it's a phase or whatever. So I actually had no support, very little support. I had no one that understood, and I was very misguided, because I thought that I should not be doing this. I should not be I should not be feeling this way, because it's wrong. There must be something wrong with me. And so I had to carry that shame for so long. I was so ashamed because I wasn't supported and I wasn't told otherwise. I was told that it was wrong for doing what I was doing. So again, like, I'm saying this because I can see it in the community as well, of when we were talking about anger, when we were talking about emotions and your experiences, your dark experiences, they are all valid. And I'm still working on not shaming myself and for what I've gone through, because it's so embedded, and it was embedded when I was very young, when I was a teenager, that you shouldn't have done that, Reem. That's such a wrong thing to do to yourself. That's just so bad, and that's not right. Mental health is, like, in my culture, it was just seen as just something that you don't do. And so I've shamed myself for so long, and that's something that my shadow work, that my healing has and is still teaching me to do. And there are still times in my life, and I like pray to my angels, I pray to God every day, where I'm just like, just give me the strength to let go of that shame, because it's something that I'm still going through, because it's like, it's such a dense and sticky energy that, like, it's like stuck onto me, is what shame feels like. It's like it's stuck to me. So it's a very hard energy to release. So I wanted to talk about that.
Well, and the thing that's so funny, and I don't know if you know this about me at all, but you know what my specialty was when I was a psychotherapist?
What?
Eating disorders. That's
No
where I got my start.
way.
Yeah. So actually, as a young little intern, Rob, I somehow found myself placed on an eating disorder inpatient unit at a local hospital, and so that actually ended up forming a big part of my career. And I did
Wow.
eating disorder treatment for a lot of it.
Wow.
And so that the eating disorder population is a population that's been near and dear to my heart for a really long time, which probably is also a part of our psychic connection too, right? And kind of that work through. But I, one of the things that I always felt was the real turning point for anyone with an eating disorder is exactly when they started to get past that sense of shame, and a lot of it had to do with the shame of the emotions that they had, right? And so like there's this what would you say, like this paradox where it's like they feel these emotions and then they don't know what to do with them, and so then they just try to like stuff them down, but then they feel shameful of that behavior. So it's like they feel shameful of their, both of their emotions and their behaviors, right? And so it's a very, very shameful process, right? But as they kind of absolve themselves from that and start to allow the emotions and actually even come to term even with the behaviors, right? And so like if you if you had a really bad day and say that person did like a binge and purge or something like that, I'm not going to give them grief for that as their therapist. I'm going to say, well, damn it, you tried. You know what I mean? Like it was the best that you could do on that day, and you got to look at that way and say, hey, like I'm human, and there's things that I'm going to do sometimes, and I'm going to wish that I did them differently, but that's ultimately okay. It's just part of the healing process. And you'd be so surprised at how quickly things start to change as soon as they kind of have that unconditional positive regard for themselves, and also like somebody reinforcing that in their world. And it's a beautiful, beautiful process. But I think that's kind of a big part of it for everyone. I always looked at it. So like working in therapy, we have the diagnostic statistical manual, which is a big thick book about this big, right? And to me, it's like all the different ways in which we try to navigate our world. So it's like all these different diagnoses, like it's all pathologized, right? So like even in the same way, it's an eating disorder, right? So it's pathological. Someone called it pathological, right? But there's such a huge proportion of the population who does this. It's like, well, is it pathological, or is it just something that's ingrained in our neurobiology that causes us to, to do certain behaviors to try and cope with certain life circumstances? And so ultimately, I always kind of looked at that, that manual as being just like the list of ways that people try to deal with the shit that happens in their lives. That's how I look at it. There's a lot of different ways that happens, but ultimately, I would say, and one of the reasons why I like Louise Hay so much in specific is because really it always kind of comes back to the same thing. Can I accept myself as a work in progress? Can I accept the things that I feel? Can I accept the fact that, I'm not always going to react in ways that I want to react, behave in ways that I want to behave, and just kind of look at myself and still hold myself in that self-acceptance. And that's, that's a big part of the journey of all of this in my mind.
Absolutely. Well said. That's so interesting that was your specialty. See, I knew Spirit linked us for a reason.
Yeah. Well, there's no, and I always look at it that way, right? Like there's always these synchronicities. There's always these little nods that this is like, oh, yep. No, you're talking to exactly the people who you're supposed to be talking to at this time, because we're all kindred spirits and we're all just trying to figure this place out.
Yeah, that's exactly it. We're all just trying to figure it out. And I want our channels, like your channel, my channel, and now we're connected with Russell. And I feel like it's like a growing channeled community. And it's just all about building a safe space. And I just want to build a safe space with everybody. Bring your darkness, bring your demons, bring your light, bring it all. Because it's all a place of love, and that's what life is all about. I honestly think that that's what the spiritual journey is all about: experiencing the presence of divinity in all of its glory and all of its light and all of its darkness, and embrace it. Embrace who you are, and because none of it is wrong. None of it is wrong. And that's something that I've experienced, and it's still accepting with what you said. It's all about self-acceptance. And I'm a work in progress. I'm still a work in progress. Like, I don't think I'll ever be complete. Like, yes, I mean, I like to think I'm somewhat enlightened to some sort of degree, I guess, but I'm not there. And will I ever get there? I don't know. Like, how much can you really be enlightened here on earth? I'm not sure. That's something that I always question, but I will always be a work in progress, and I will always strive to self-accept myself and also accept other people. So that's why when people, going back to our main topic, is when people come at you, this is why it's so important to stand up for yourself, because you're standing up for who you are, all of you, all parts of you. So when I defend myself, I'm defending myself wholeheartedly in all of me, because I've accepted myself. And I need to be able to defend my heart, to defend my soul, to defend my inner child as well. That's the way I see it. It's like I'm a mother to my inner child, that this would never be okay to me. Even if I think of myself, like if a person came up to my child and said some of the things that they said to me, I would be the mom to go up to that child and their child's mother and be like, what the fuck is wrong with your child? I don't know what kind of mother I would be, but I would be one of those moms to be like,
oh yeah,
like you need to apologize right now. Like I would be right up in your face. So I think that it's healthy, and it's important to address people. And you'll see me, screenshotting horrible comments and posting it on my community because I want to.
Yeah.
And because it's a way for me to vent and a way for me to get it out. And it's my divine right to do that. And I've gone over this aspect of like what people think of me. I think that's also something that I'm still trying to get over, because you come on here and you know that you're going to be judged. You're going to be judged by the way you look. You're going to be judged by the way you talk. You're going to be judged by other people. No matter what you say or what you don't say, people are going to like you or they hate you. It goes either way, and you put yourself out there, and it's not easy. And this is outside of my comfort zone. I don't know about you, but this is completely in my comfort zone. This is not something I want to do, but I'm here. I'm doing it because I'm guided. So if I'm guided, I know that there's some truth to it, and I know it's not only helping myself, but also helping other people. So I have every right to defend myself, and I'm learning how to not care about what other people think. It's still like, it annoys me, and it's very frustrating, but that's also something that is a learning curve.
It's so hard. It really is so hard because, again, right, that's our socialization. There's so much emphasis on, I guess you could kind of say conformity, right? I think that we have this really big conformity impulse within us because there is a sense of safety in numbers, right? And so especially, for those of us who have gone through traumas in life and things like that, right? You start to learn like, oh, maybe the world isn't such a safe place. And then you kind of get, what would you say? You start to integrate your spirituality, and you kind of start to, get that sense of like, well, maybe the world is a safe place, and maybe the things that I've gone through, were really for my development, and that it was a little bit safer than I had given it credit for. So then you kind of start to come back out of that shell a little bit. But at the same time, too, then you're kind of dealing with your own impulses, and a lot of this stuff is biological. Like we're actually neurobiologically structured to conform. You know what I mean? So you're working against a lot. That innate deep brain, like that's like reptilian brain stuff. To like herd mentality ultimately. And then as you become more of an individual, you're fighting those impulses to connect with the herd, and that's it's a big undertaking, but ultimately too, I think it's definitely a strengthening process, because if you can be yourself in front of other people, you can actually be yourself in the mirror.
Yeah.
And that's the most important place.
True. Yeah. And that was something that I had trouble to do. Like when I was going through my eating disorder, I couldn't look in the mirror. I couldn't face myself, even after I was healing that aspect of myself and healing my wounds. It was still very hard to look in the mirror. So
right.
now it's easy. Now it's just because I'm who I am. I'm who I am here. I have nothing to hide. I speak my truth, and I'm speaking my authenticity, and it gets easier every day to look in that mirror and say, yep, this is who you are.
That's awesome.
Girl, embrace it.
And that's the funny part, right? Because and I know you were saying that there was like some resistance in the comments to some of the things that we were saying, but ultimately that's really the whole point of this conversation, is that we're trying to help you guys around some of this. It's hard. It's like a lot of times you'll see people do blind spot readings, and I love when they do that, but we're trying to say, like, if you just kind of stop for a moment and think about this and say like, okay, like what if I just kind of disconnected from a lot of the things that I've been taught and just kind of thought about this for a moment, as maybe there's some other ways to try and heal myself and work on my own self-acceptance, like what actually resonates with my being versus what other people have told me. And I think it was interesting too that you had mentioned that this idea of how enlightened can a person be. I feel like the age of the guru is done. You know what I mean? Like the age of the guru, the age of the ascended master, so on and so forth. I think now it's about fellow travelers. Like this is like people, like we're just out here, as Lauren B says, we're out here in these streets, just trying to learn from each other. You know what I mean? Like so no lotus flower, like let's get real for a minute and just like be people.
yeah get real. That's what it is. That's why, like, going back to what we were talking about earlier about this whole love and light, that's a facade. We need to get real with ourselves. This is a real world. Like, get into the real world now. We're in the streets.
I didn't know if you had time or not, Remy. I don't know if
I do, yes.
Do you want to do any Q&A, like allow
Yeah,
people
let's
to
do
ask
it.
any questions if they want, or if you guys have any
Absolutely.
questions, go ahead. And don't forget there's a time lag, so it might take a minute for them to catch up.
Absolutely, let's do it.
Yeah, I'll put it in the comments too.
Yeah, there's like a minute or so time lag. I thought I would breathe fire here, but it wasn't too bad. I wasn't too Khaleesi.
No, not too Khaleesi.
Not yet.
I thought it was good. That was real good. It was a good conversation.
Next, we need to bring Russell into this. I don't think we would pay attention though. I think get out of hand.
I think this live stream needs a little bit more beard.
I think we need to bring Russell.
I'm just looking to see if anybody asked anything. That might be it. Maybe there is no questions. Maybe we were thorough.
Oh, that's the first.
Cool.
No questions?
Oh, Hawkeye asked if it's possible to get rid of the shadow. I don't, and I'll see what your thoughts are on this, Remy, but I don't think so. I think that's kind of part of the mentality that we're talking about in this, is that I don't think it's about getting rid of your shadow. I don't think it's about burying your shadow. I don't think it's about slaying your inner demon or something like that. I think it's exactly what Remy was saying, was the sense of, it's about integrating it. It's about like, how do you work together with your shadow? Again, accepting like that part of yourself, knowing that you have some kind of level of darkness. And I think sometimes the way that I look at it, and this might kind of help a little bit intellectually to think of it this way, but it's like as light becomes brighter, right, the darkness of a shadow increases as well. And so the brighter the light, the darker the shadow. And that's kind of just recognizing our human bipolar nature, like that we have two parts of ourselves, light and dark, and we don't want to, as much as we wouldn't want to be without our light, we don't want to be without our dark either. But we're kind of left, it's like we're kind of left as the manager of those forces.
Yeah, honestly, my response to that would be like, why on earth would you want to get rid of your shadow? Why would you want to get rid of an aspect of yourself that just desires love and affection from your being? Why would you want to get rid of that aspect of yourself that is dark? See, this is where we need to rewrite this narrative. I would never want to get rid of my shadow. My shadow is part of who I am, and I love it. And it is my demon, it is my darkness, and it is my goddess Lilith, Isis, goddess Inanna Ishtar energy. And why would I want to get rid of it? It's here for a reason, it's here to stay. And it's taught me a lot, and it's growing. It's growing with me, it's pushing the boundaries, it's protecting me. And I love my shadows. And yeah, they're here to stay. They're right here.
So this is so cool. Anam said, he said, Khaleesi Reem, you're breathing fiery inspiration.
Oh,
and I think, this is really cool though, because, I one of the Nordic connections to this is that I always thought this was interesting, but Odin, for instance, is known as, like he's known as the, like kind of the god of, what do they say? Basically like divine rage or divine fury, like he has those connections. But like in Nordic traditions, inspiration and rage are looked at as being kind of like the same paradigm, like they're the same energy source essentially. So, and you can kind of see that, right? Like when a person becomes excited or inspired, you actually have the same bodily response, right? Like the heart starts going, you start to have the adrenaline response, your palms start to sweat, like all those, it's the same thing. And so that's another reason why we wouldn't want to disconnect from our shadow or our anger, right? It's because that's a part of our inspiration and our creative ability.
Yeah. And I was actually, Russell was watching my video yesterday that I did with Goddess Ningal, and her divine fury was flowing through me. And I felt this like pulsating energy within me. I started to shake a little bit when channeling her, actually, because there was so much divine rage in it, and it was so healthy and so beautiful and such power. And I call it a calm fire. Calmness is my superpower, but if I can stay calm in that state of divine fury, that's even more powerful. So if I can have that sense of fiery inspiration, that's what I aspire to be. So yeah, Russell was saying that to me earlier, and I call it like a calm burning fire that always is burning within me and within all of us. I think Patrick had a really good question.
I didn't see it.
There was actually a few questions about like, what do we do when...
Oh, he asked how to deal with feeling shame when intimidated by others.
Yeah.
So I'm going to throw this out there and maybe just kind of reframe that question a little bit, because I think it's interesting, because a lot of times people become intimidated not of others, they become intimidated of themselves. So, and I know that was a problem that I dealt with, especially as a Scorpio male. so
Explain that a little bit.
Yeah. So when I, especially growing up, you know, and I think I've noticed this in some others' readings too as of late, and it really rang true for me. You know, this idea of being, what would you say, like kind of, I don't know if it's like chastised or corrected. We'll say corrected for having intense emotions or having intense emotionality. So part of the Scorpio growth pattern is to learn how to manage intense emotions, right? Like I was saying before, like getting to learn to love my tumultuous heart right, is kind of a big part of the experience. And ultimately, I would get intimidated in situations, and I thought I was intimidated of the other person, but really what I was intimidated of was my own anger. And I think that ultimately, Patrick, I would really take a look at that. Are you intimidated of other people, or are you afraid of your own anger? Because I used to be afraid that I would get angry, I would show it, and then I would somehow like humiliate myself for my anger, because like my anger used to get out of check, especially when I was younger, right? Like, I mean, you know, as a teenager and so on and so forth, it would get to be too much. And then I would feel embarrassed after it, because being shamed for anger, right? Interesting topic that we're on. But it was that sense that I had to learn to trust myself enough to manage my own anger. And so that, I think, is kind of the cure for that intimidation factor, when you can kind of look at it as like, hey, if I get angry, you know, I have the skills to keep that in check and to still have a productive adult conversation, and not to be overcome or overwhelmed by my anger.
Yeah, I agree with that. That's very well said. I feel the same way. When I get angry, I feel ashamed of feeling angry. And then I worry about how other people took me in that state. So it's that intimidation of fearing my own anger and how I look like when I'm angry, or what I say when I'm angry. So I fear my own anger. I intimidate myself. That's really interesting, because that was something that I've never actually had that perception of. So it's a really healing way of actually seeing it, because you're not really intimidated of others, you're intimidated of yourself.
Yeah, definitely.
There were actually some really good questions.
Cynthia asked about fear. She said, how do you overcome fear? I think that's one of those things, and I want to throw out there that I never look at it as overcoming fear or anything like that. I don't look at it as becoming less fearful. I look at it as becoming braver. Like that's kind of the paradigm shift in how I look at it, where it's like, I don't expect my fear to go away. I just say, okay, I'm afraid, and that's okay. But I'm going to go ahead and lean into that fear and do whatever it was that I was going to do anyways. So don't wait for your fear to go away. Just try to do things in despite of that fear, and just look at it as an emotion that you're experiencing.
I use my fear to my advantage, because it's there for a reason. So instead of fearing fear and trying to, it'll just go away, it's actually trying to guide you in a direction that is there for a purpose, for growth, to push yourself. So for me, I use fear to my advantage. I try to incorporate the fear and to push through that fear, but I use it to my advantage because I know it's teaching me something and I know it's going to push a boundary of myself. So I try to use it. It's a hard energy to kind of to work with, but it's there. It's a very powerful frequency, actually, fear. But definitely use it to your advantage. It's there for a reason.
Awesome. Yeah, that's great advice. Rosa asked about how can you tell when anger is toxic? I feel like your inner being will tell you because that's always kind of my tip off, because I feel like a lot of times people will say things and it won't strike me. You know, like sometimes even if somebody says something and like it could be read as condescending, or I could get caught up on it, but I would say trust that instinct. If somebody says something to you and you have that inner trigger, that is a really good indication that what that person is saying is meant to hurt or meant to harm, and they're not coming forth at face value. Because a lot of times people, for me, for instance, right, like on my channel, a lot of times people will have debate with me, which I love, and I'm like completely cool with that. I don't mind being challenged. I don't mind people saying like, hey, I don't know if I agree with that. I don't know if that's like something that resonates with me. I kind of think it's this way. And like, I love those discussions. Like those are interesting to me, right? Like if you're going to have that intellectual discussion, that feels good. But when people come from this sort of shaming paradigm or like a self-righteous paradigm, those are usually the ways that I think anger comes through. Like that they shame you. It's like a holier than thou, I'm better than you. It's like a superiority, or like they're trying to assert their dominance, because that for me is very triggering when somebody tries to assert dominance over me, and I can just feel like that inner anger just kind of swell up and say, no, nobody's going to dominate me. You know what I mean? And that, honor that, but then make sure that you fight to that standard that we talked about, like your own personal integrity. Don't go down to their level. You know, you do you in the best possible way.
Yeah, I see it as like when someone's trying to do this, like they're trying to put their thumb over you. It's that feeling of like, okay, that's toxic anger. That's, again, it's trust your first gut, your first reaction on that. And I always see it as someone trying to put their thumb on you and bring you down. That's a trigger for me.
Yeah, well said.
Really talk about enlightened or entitled people, but that's also something that I wanted to address, the entitlement that some people feel when it comes to people like us. Like when we do readings, when we come here on live, it's like they have a sense of entitlement to get something from us. And those kinds of people I see as actual like energy vampires, like that energy vampire term, because they just want to take, take from you, and they don't have anything good to give you in return. There's no energy that is reciprocated from them. That was actually a topic that I forgot to talk about, but it's something that you experience. It's something that actually a lot of people here on YouTube experiences, their sense of entitlement, whether it's to get a reading quickly, like get it out. Why aren't you doing this? Or why aren't you doing that? And it's just like, get real. Like I do readings one guided, so I don't have a schedule. And sometimes you won't see a reading for a month of your sign. And if that's the case, that's the case. I had a person that I actually blocked today, and they were gaslighting me. That's another thing. Spiritual gaslighting is a thing. And they were saying, where's the Aries reading? Why haven't you done this? Like reading for Aries anymore? You read other signs. What about this? And it's just like, why do you have to automatically assume that I don't like reading for a sign just because I haven't done it? I do, like, I do readings one guided, and it's like automatically the finger's on you of you're not doing it, you're doing something wrong. And I'm pretty sure this person is just sitting on their couch doing shit all. And it's like, why don't you go get the answers? Go get the answers your damn self then. Like, don't come to me. So spiritual gaslighting is a thing. That's something that you really need to look out for. And the entitlement ass people, I will gladly put in their place, because you don't deserve anything from me. I don't owe you anything, and I don't need to prove myself to you. As soon as I feel that energy from someone, I will gladly step in and defend myself, because that's just not okay. You don't deserve, I don't owe you anything. I'm here because I'm here. I'm here to do something, whatever this is.
I completely agree with that. But anybody who feels entitled enough to be, to be demanding of your energy in that way, shape, or form, again, it's like a dominance thing. It's like a superiority thing. And those ultimately, tying it back into anger, those are the times where I most often feel my anger rise up. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it's that idea of, it's not okay to walk over me, and here's the truth too. Like, if you wouldn't do it in public, like, don't do it online. Like, that's just such a simple rule of thumb. That to me is like the equivalent of going to a restaurant and like snapping your fingers at the waiter or waitress. Like, you don't do that. Like, that's tacky. So.
It is. It's so tacky, and I really don't understand it. It's beyond me. And like, these readings are free, like we're out here doing this because of our lovely hearts, and you guys demand shit from us as if like, yes, like, again, it's going back to this like walking all over people. I refuse anyone to walk all over me. Those days are over.
Oh, this is an interesting one. And maybe I'll let you go first on this one, Remy. Daryl asks, what do you think the spiritual meaning of COVID-19 and lockdown culture is? Is there anything you guys think the collective needs to uncover about it?
I don't want to get into conspiracies, because I feel like there is a very fine line right now of talking about COVID and not talking about conspiracies, because there are so many conspiracy theories out there. From my personal experience, the way that this lockdown, what it did for me was actually gave me the opportunity to slow the fuck down. Sorry for swearing, but it's like, it's real. That's what it taught me, because I was driving to work every day. I was, or on the go train. I was, it was all work, and then come home, do a YouTube video, shower, walk my dog, eat dinner, do this, do that, make sure that I'm replying to my friends, make sure I'm replying to YouTube people, make sure I'm doing this, make sure I'm doing that. And I had actually no time for the self. And I needed to slow down. And it's not just me. I think this is on a collective scale, that people needed to learn how to slow down, how to sit still, how to be engaged. I also think it allowed an opportunity for people to learn how to communicate with other people, because now you're being forced to communicate to people, yes, via webcam or via chat, but it actually gave you an opportunity to miss people that were very important in your life. So it also gave me this experience of, wow, I miss so-and-so. I miss my best friend. Like, I know we talk every day, but it's like that connection, that human bond, that human connection of not being able to touch someone, not being able to hug someone or kiss someone, that was missing. And it really helped me see how valuable human connection is, communication, and slowing down to understand the self on a very broader scale. Because the more that you remove the busyness of your life, the more that yourself actually expanded into that space. So I felt like myself was expanding in the busyness that started to dissipate, and I was able to expand in that space instead and start to allow what energies I actually wanted to come in. So that's what this whole lockdown taught me. I don't know from a collective, like, what do we need to uncover? But I guess I kind of spoke to it. Human connection is, I think, probably the top one. I think that's what we needed to uncover here, is how important that is. And I think that's what we started to take advantage of.
Oh, so true. It's tough to say about the collective, because I do think that the COVID shutdown was a different experience for each person at an individual level. I always feel reticent to say this, because I know that for a lot of people, COVID was really a great tragedy, and I know people who lost like multiple family members and just, just had an awful time, like, trauma that's going to take them a long time to heal from. And so I always feel reticent to say this, but for me, I feel like COVID made me a much better person, ultimately. I don't really know what else to say about it, because so if you were to rewind back to 2018, 2019, and you were to look through a little through a little crystal ball and see what I was up to, I mean, don't get me wrong, I feel like I was doing good work out in the world, and I was a psychotherapist at the time, and working with people, and I feel proud of that. But at the same time too, I worked from sun up to sundown, and I was all about making that money and buying shit, and like trying to put as much as I could into my retirement accounts. And it was like, and I was so disconnected from my family, and I was disconnected from my wife, and I was disconnected from everybody who mattered to me. And it was just like my whole life was just work, and so much like Remy said, it was like a big old stop sign that just said, you need to stop and think about your life. Because, and I feel actually very, very grateful for the experience, because I mean, it brought me here, but ultimately it kind of I feel like it kind of pulled me out of the matrix, because I feel like I was very much chasing all of the things that like that people tell you will make you happy, right? Like, okay, get the house, get the car, like all that kind of stuff, like make the money, get the things. And ultimately I wasn't a very happy person. I really wasn't, like very much like kind of in that wounded healer sort of vibe. But now, you know what I mean? Like it's definitely created a lot of freedom in my life to be to be connected to the people who I really love. And I love this community. I get to meet awesome people like Remy, which is really cool, and that I feel, but like just that really, really strong connection with the other tarot readers, the tarot tribe, you and I mentioned San before too, and Cindy and Russell and Lauren and so on and so forth. And I'm sorry if I omit anybody, because there's a whole bunch of them at this point, but I think like those connections, like having that very, very like spiritual connection with other people is really what COVID brought into my life. And so I actually look at it really favorably. I don't feel like it was like a detriment to me.
Yeah. The death is also a really big aspect of it that I still can't really understand. I often put myself in into thinking, why did millions of people have to die?
Right.
For us to recognize how valuable not only life is, but connecting to one another is. Like, does it really need this mass of a pandemic to get humans to realize how important it is to love one another, to be compassionate to one another, and to empathize with one another? Like, does it really need to take this? And I always kind of beg the question and say to the universe, like, why did millions of people have to die? It's a tragedy. I know you can talk about spiritual warfare and get into the conspiracies of why, but it begs the question to me, like, did it really have to come to this? And I feel sad that it does, because, I mean, look at the wars that we continuously have throughout history, and it's still very much repeated. Look at what we do to communities. Look at what we do to the indigenous people all around the world. Look at what we do to each other. Is this a big collective lesson? Yes. And it's really sad that it had to come to this. And that's what really hurts my heart, because people died. People lost family, babies, children. People lost their homes. People lost their businesses. And it's such a hard thing to grasp. And I question why. And it's sad that it had to come to this.
A lot of that stuff too, I kind of look at as being also kind of above our pay grade on a cosmic level, because a lot of things that seem like total chaos and carnage at like I guess on the 3D level, maybe sometimes is somehow harmonious on the 5D level. And I don't get that either. I really don't, because I noticed Rosa's also asking too about like why the Native Americans had suffered so much and how that works karmically. And I don't know. I mean, I've always had a really firm belief that we sign up for our lives, you know, like before we incarnate. And so we know what we're getting ourselves into. And that's hard to even say too, honestly, with a straight face, because especially like when you're in the midst of somebody who, for instance, lost somebody in some really awful way. I guess on a bigger scale, I guess I don't really know, if I'm just being honest. But again, I think it's one of those things where I think, as Remy so beautifully put, it's kind of like getting faced. I feel like it was kind of like spirit facing us existentially, you know, like with like, you are mortal, you will die, you know, and not to be dramatic, but it is a dramatic message. Like, you will die, people will die. What do you do with that? You know, like, what kind of person are you going to be? Are you going to continue to go through your life, you know, not giving a shit about anyone else? And that's, I mean, like, and I know that that's very often very connected to kind of the US mentality, but that's a global paradigm at this point, you know, where people don't really care about their fellow human being, what happens to them, you know. And I think we've been desensitized a lot by things like statistics on TV. I mean, I never get it how people can kind of just shrug off like, well, 400,000 people died, 500,000 people died, you know, and people are just like, well, it is what it is. You know, I'm just kind of like, well, like, that doesn't make you feel anything, you know, like, if it doesn't, it's kind of a problem. And we kind of need to look at that a little bit. Oh, please tell me we didn't lose Remy. She froze. Are you still here, Remy? She might just be reconnecting. But yeah, as I said, I think it's just kind of difficult to say exactly what the point of it all was. Let's see if we have any other questions. Give Remy a little bit of time to reconnect. Maybe she was tapping into the energy too hard. Let's see. Did she reconnect? We have the Remy back.
I'm back.
Oh, awesome. I got to hijack your channel for a little bit. I was an internet pirate. I've commandeered your channel.
That's okay. It's I heard most of what you were saying, and then and I'm like, oh no, I'm just gonna. But I'm here now.
That'll happen.
It's a tough topic. It really is. I don't understand it. I don't think we will ever really understand it. I don't know. It's such a hard thing to fathom. It's because this is bigger than us. This is so much bigger than us, and I think there's a lesson in it. And I hope that we can all come out and be more compassionate towards other people and love other people, because we fucked up as a humanity. I gotta say it. We really did. We fucked each other up. We fucked the planet up. And I don't know. We need to do better. We really need to do a better job. That's all I gotta say about that.
I totally agree.
We need to do better.
Well, and again, you know, kind of back to not tying it back to exactly what we were talking about, you know, that has a lot to do with correcting bad behavior, you know, and trying to rewrite the narrative, because I don't know about you. I don't want to live in this world. If for some reason I ever have kids, I don't want them to live in that world either, you know. I want better, you know, I want better for people. So.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that ties it really beautifully, like you said, with what we're talking about and how people come at us. We want to be able to use it as a time to constructively defend ourselves and constructively talk to other people and say, you know, you need to correct this, because it's just not okay for you to come at me or attack this community or to attack me. And our hope is that people will see that and people will learn. But I don't know. I don't know. I often think of like, we always need to have that sense of balance of good and bad, right? It's that good and evil and good and bad. And I don't know, like, I think we're always going to have some sort of bad in this world. I think it's necessary because the universe is all about balance, right? And polarity. But I think what started to occur is that it became very imbalanced. And so I think we're starting to restore that balance right now. So more of these people are awakening, and more people are showing love, more people are taking responsibility and accountability over their own actions. And I think we need to we're tipping the scales back into balance because it was off scale for quite some time. So I think that's what perhaps COVID was a time and an opportunity to restore the balance of the world.
Yeah. Yeah, beautifully said. Beautifully said. Anybody else have anything?
We should do more of these. We should have like topics maybe from people, if you guys want to have different topics that we want to talk about. I think they're really fun. I like talking with you. It feels easy.
Yeah, it does. It felt a lot easier than I thought it was going to.
Yeah, I was like,
not
am I
about
gonna?
you, but just like on this.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought I would have to block more people, but I think Patrick was on it because
Yeah, he's on top of it.
Yeah, someone was weird a while ago, but I have no shame in blocking anybody. No shame in that.
Yeah, I would love to do more of these. If anybody has things that they would like to throw out there, please feel free to either email Remy or email me, or comment on something like, hey, I'd love to see you guys talk about this, that, or the other thing. Always happy to do that.
We could do a poll as well, like on both of our channels. Different topics we want to talk about and see what people are interested in. And then we can talk about that topic. And we'll definitely bring in Russell.
Yeah, that would be fun. I got to get him in here.
Yeah. Do you need a Zoom account to be invited?
Yeah, not the paid one. I think just a regular account. Yep.
Okay, we can help him with that. Yeah, we're gonna bring in Russell next time. I think that would be some fun trouble at least.
That'd be great.
Other last minute questions for Rob or I?
Somebody asked why we started spirituality channels, and that's easy. I'm just going to say it's because I'm a broken person.
Yep, basically.
Basically, you don't end up becoming spiritual unless you've come from the school of hard knocks and taken some night classes.
Yeah, I'm that's my answer too. Because I'm a broken person. I wanted to help people. I don't know. I was encouraged by my friend to do it. And I was like, no way. No, I am not going on YouTube. Like, hell no. And so I was encouraged, and here I am. So I don't know about you, Rob, but it's honestly, it's still like very surreal to me. It's very much outside of my comfort zone. It's just weird. Like, I still think it's such a weird platform, but it's such like, I want to be able to kind of create our own community and make it feel like home in a sense. I think that's the only way that I can feel really comfortable, which I have been, but it's still very much outside of my comfort zone. But I wanted to create it because I wanted to give a safe space, not only for me, but for other people.
But I think the power in that, though, is that I think and I think that's how you end up on a platform, at least in my sense of how spirit kind of guides you to be on a platform, because you have that sense of humility. And because ultimately, if you've ever noticed, and I don't mean this in any kind of mean or condescending way, but people who are doing it more for their own ego gratification very rarely have any success, and I mean, some people do, but I think at least in the spiritual community, that if it comes off as inauthentic, if it comes out as, like self-aggrandizing, or at least if that's visible, I think it's people don't tend to make their way very long on the platform.
Well, I find that there's a lot of people on there that have millions of subscribers, and they're talking about law of attraction and spirituality and like the 9 steps to shadow work and all of that. And I see that because a lot of people are gravitated to the facade.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I think. I think there's a lot of success in those kind of channels because it's just dealing with the surface. I think when you start talking about the pain and the suffering and the real dark shit, not a lot of people gravitate towards that. I mean, some people do. You get those subscribers, you get those people, but a lot of people, it's like the iceberg. Like those channels only deal with the tip of the iceberg. I think we're one of those channels that deal with the rest of the iceberg. We deal with the real shit that's below the surface that a lot of people don't like to talk about. So there are some channels that are very successful, but it's because they only deal with the nice stuff. Right. Just stuff. That's it.
Yeah, we definitely get into the depth of it, and as you said too, and a lot of those, and I think a lot of those channels too are really great as like introductory, like spirituality 101. Let's talk about love and light. When we get into spirituality 200 or 300 or master's classes in spirituality, like, let's talk about laying in the fetal position. And crying for your mommy.
Oh my God. It's so true though. It's so true. This is funny. Have you ever met Ben?
Oh, I just in pictures.
Ben.
Oh, sweetie. Yeah, one thing I'll say about spirituality is that pets really help. Dogs really help. Cats, whatever. Yeah. anything to tone it down a little bit.
Oh my God, I know. She's my savior. It's my guardian angel. It's funny. Every time I pray or I talk to my great grandmother or I talk to my guardian angels, she comes running.
Oh.
Literally comes running. And when I do readings and I close the door, she's always like on the door and she wants to come in. There was one video I did and she was like jumping on my lap and I was doing part of the reading with her and actually commented and was like, you shouldn't let your dog in the reading because they're a distraction. That's not good. I've trained my dog to not come in when I'm doing readings. And I'm like, who are you? Like, who are you to say like my dog, this little innocent being is a distraction? You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just like they say the dumbest thing that I don't get it.
Yeah, I don't get that either. Annie, my little dog, she likes to be around for readings for sure. She likes to show up for readings, especially Virgo readings because she's a little Virgo. So she's like, huh? You're reading for me?
Yeah, she's just the best.
Yeah.
Patrick, you saved me from the wrath of Remy, and I noticed you click on the draw blocking the messiness. Yeah. You're lucky I didn't see that shit. I don't know what you said, but
hey, can we shout out Patrick Rio Karuk and his awesome channel? I've been watching as of late and I just love the stuff that he's putting out, but I know he does a lot of moderation on your channel. He does moderation for my lives. I think everybody's lives he hangs out and definitely keeps the peace. And so if you guys haven't had the chance to check out Rio Karuk, you should probably check that out. But it's probably the most difficult name to say in all of tarot.
What does it even mean? Is it Norse? Rio Karuk?
Yeah, we must know, Patrick. What does Rio Karuk mean? And there might be a little time lag. I'll give him
I just call you Patrick because
I call him Patrick too.
I can't say that. Aldo or Rio. I think I started calling you Rio because I thought that was your name. Rob and Russell call you Patrick, so I'm like, okay, his name's Patrick. Patrick has a really great channel where he just lets it all out there, and it's very insightful, very intuitive, very different, and I really like it.
Oh, he made it up. Oh, that's perfect. I like it even better than if he just made it up.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Brianna asked, have either of you experienced sleep paralysis as an intervention from your spiritual team?
Oh, I don't know if it was an intervention. Is sleep paralysis part of intervention? I don't know. I thought I saw it as an attack actually, so I was actually talking to Lauren and I messaged her and I said, when she posted that video of, you know, she was really standing her ground and saying, "You can't say shit to me." I loved that little video that she posted on Instagram. But I actually started to get nightmares recently because someone was trying to fight me in a comment section and was telling me that I can't respond back because I'm not enlightened if I respond back, and you know, I can't defend myself apparently. So I didn't lose it, but I like really let them have my fire at that point, my demons. And I started to get nightmares because that person was psychically attacking me. When I was younger, at about 11 years old, I had sleep paralysis where someone was, I was trying to wake up and I couldn't, and I was trying to actually get up. I was trying to wake up and I was trying to move and I couldn't move, as if someone was holding back my neck. And I actually saw that as an attack. I did not see it as spirit intervention because why would spirit do that? So that was not spirit intervention. So my sleep paralysis was actually a spiritual attack. And it happened when I was 11 years old and I was sleepwalking. When I slept walk, I was actually running away from wolves. So I was running away from bad spirits. So I think I was like under attack when I was very young from like spirits. So I think this was like always my path, apparently. You know, when you're young and you experience things like that, when you get older, you're very conscious of your experiences. Then when you were younger, you realize that how linked your paths actually are to when you're a child. So yeah, that to me, my sleep paralysis was an attack. I don't know about you. I don't know, but that was mine.
I like how Bunny came in to protect you when you started talking about that. Bunny's like, I really believe in that, like that idea of like animal familiars, and I do really believe our pets are like guardians or protectors, because whenever I've had any kind of creepy presences, Annie will start barking at whatever it is too, because like sometimes all of a sudden I'll get this sense of something is over in the corner of the room. Annie gets alerted and she'll start barking at it, like, get out of here. You know, it's cool. It's really, really cool. I did have sleep paralysis and things like that. And actually, I'm actually happy that somebody asked, because that was actually a really big part of my journey. I started having sleep paralysis around 16, 17 or something like that. And it scared the shit out of me, and it actually drove me off my path. And actually, I think that's why it happens, because I didn't look at it as like a positive intervention by my spirit team at all. I actually looked at it as like, oh my God, like it was funny because I didn't even have any notion of this until I researched it later on. I thought something was sitting on top of my chest, and then I read about people having experiences of sleep paralysis and thinking that a hag was sitting on top of their chest. Like, that's a real thing. And I was like, and it freaked me out. And actually, to be completely transparent, it actually really drove me off my path, because I think really I was meant to be, focused in the psychic realm and doing mediumship work and, things like that. But I think that these presences like will notice you, for lack of a better term, coming online, and then they try to get in your way just because they're malicious beings, and they just like to screw with you, right? So anyways, I started to have kind of like that psychic awakening, and I started having experiences like that, and it freaked me out so bad I thought I was losing my damn mind. And actually I started having like issues with drinking too much, and like because I was really like having an issue with thinking that my mental health was failing me. And it actually took me kind of a long time to recharacterize that and be like, oh no, like that's just like, sometimes you just encounter dark energies, and really you're the, as Lauren says from Untitled Tarot, she says, you're the energy alpha. And sometimes it kind of takes a little bit of time to learn that. Like, you don't have to like experience those types of things, and you can push them out of your presence. That's probably a topic for another day, dealing with with dark energies and things like that try to get in the way of your path. But that was a really, like, it really sent me in kind of a tailspin.
And it's interesting because that, for me, it happened when I was young, when I was 11. Like, what I mean, like I knew nothing about spirituality or my gifts or anything of the sort. I just always remember that I spoke to angels, though. Like when I was 5 years old, I always spoke to my angels and God. Like I always, like, I don't know what it was, but I was just like, my parents just thought I was talking to like, you know, an invisible friend. But I said, no, these are my angels. These are my angels. And I think like bad spirits knew when I was like young, like coming into these gifts. And when you're young, you have no like blinders on. You're just so pure that you're actually a very strong channel when you're younger than when you're older, because of your there's no preconditions, like you're just raw. So you feel the energies more psychically and more prominently and more intense. So I felt that as a young child, and I never thought that I was under attack, but I tell you, it was not friendly. It was dark, and it like literally someone was sitting on my neck, and I was frightened. And I've had many other experiences, like you said, even with your dog. My dog Bunny, she there was someone that was attacking me on YouTube, and I gotta say, like, you guys gotta be careful. Whoever is sending that bad juju, that bad shit, you guys gotta be careful of that, because we have our ancestors. We have our ancestors that are frontline. We have spirit teams. We got our dogs. Like, there are many layers that you have to go through to get to us. And that shit is bad karma too. So not only that these energies don't touch me, but you guys got to be careful. If you're sending out that bad energy, I always say, like, you got to deal with my ancestors first. And let me tell you, like, my great grandmother does not play. Like, she does not play, and my dog doesn't play either. And I had one person attack me, and I felt an energy come through my bedroom door, and Bunny started to bark, like, from the depth of herself. Like, I've never seen her like that. And her entire hair going down from her spine stood up straight, as if she was like a cat. And she started to bark so deeply, and it scared me. And immediately that energy went away. Like, it was just like taken away. So first line of defense, ancestors. Next is Bunny. So good.
And Bunny is vicious in the 5D.
She may be small, but she's very intuitive. She's powerful. She really is.
That's how I think of Annie, is like she's this little teeny tiny dog in the 3D, but in the 5D she's like a dire wolf.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Or funny. I think honestly she could be a dragon, this one right here.
Could be. It's interesting, some of the insights that sometimes you'll get about pets, or sometimes that you'll get about other people's pets and things like that, because I've had the same kind of insights too, where I'm just kind of like, oh, that dog's an angel, you know what I mean? Like, and you just kind of get that sense.
Yeah, whenever I pray, she comes around. I'm on my hands and knees, and I'm praying to my guides, and she'll come running, and she'll sit right on my lap every time I pray. So cool. She's part of the team. She's part of the spirit team.
That's so sweet. Ooh, that's a really good question. So Adrian said, how did you start talking to your guides and ancestors? I usually have dreams I sometimes don't understand or see synchronicities, but there's a fear I have of talking to or calling in the wrong spirit. I think, and my opinion is that your guides and your ancestors are talking to you all the time. But it's just kind of one of those things that you have to know how to look, or when to look, or not to doubt the things that you get. It was funny because the other day I went for a jog, and I shared this with Russell. It was funny because I found these markings on the ground, and they actually ended up being a ruin. I was going for a jog, and it was like all down the sidewalk. The ruin was there like 20 times, which will end up being one of my next ruin videos probably. Wow. But very easily could I have just been like, oh, that was just, city maintenance or something like that, spraying these markings on the ground. But no, I was like, okay, ancestors, I see you. And it was funny because I ran down the path a little bit further, and then there's a big ass sign that says no turning back. And I was just like, and so you just gotta accept it where it comes, Adrian. So if you get messages, and like if it resonates with your being, like if you feel like it connects to whatever it is that you're thinking about at that time, or like the things that are going on in your life, it is a message. Don't downplay your messages, because they're everywhere. They're literally everywhere. one of the turning points for me was reading Carl Jung. He wrote this autobiography called Dreams, Reflections, something like that. I can't remember the name off the top of my head, but and so Carl Jung, if you're not familiar, a very, very famous psychologist, kind of like the father of I guess the second father of psychoanalytics and so on and so forth. But he talked about like trying to pair these things up, and he took like a very, very almost kind of like scientific approach to where, like, if I'm if I'm thinking about this and then I see, say, like a trifecta of numbers, like the 333 or something like that, there's some kind of connection between those two instances. If I'm having a conversation with somebody and suddenly I hear a loud thud on the wall that wasn't produced by anything in my immediate vicinity, that's like a synchronous kind of thing. And so it's kind of part of the game that we play. Be careful, like try to keep it, in my opinion, try to keep it, like non-obsessive, because sometimes people will start to believe that like literally everything is a synchronicity, but paying attention to the things that resonate with your being, they're communicating with you all the time.
I definitely have to say one of the most important things in working with any spirit is you have to know yourself first. Because if you don't know yourself first, you're going to get trickster spirits that come in and try to trick you. So be very, very diligent when working with spirits, because I'm telling you right now, spirits, they don't play. They really, really don't. This is like their realm, and we are connecting to their realm. So you really have to know yourself. I always say when working with any spirits, you really have to do your shadow work. When I first came onto the scene, I read just intuitively. But when I started to delve into deities, goddesses, working with my ancestors, working with my guides, they wouldn't let me tap into the energy unless I did the shadow work first. Because then I could integrate with my demons, integrate with my darkness, integrate with myself first, get to know myself, and then I can work with other deities and goddesses, because then I would be able to use discernment as to who I'm really talking to. So really, 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 and this is like huge, you have to know yourself first. Because if you have any inclination or any sort of energy, even if it's minuscule, of doubt or fear, or like you said, Rob, obsessing, I'm telling you right now, trickster energies are going to come and find you, and they will trick you into thinking that things are what you want them to be, and they're really not. So be very, very careful and be very present with yourself, and then you can work holistically and truthfully with spirits and call forth goddesses and deities. And some spirits won't work with you unless they can trust you. So again, this goes back, like, you have to trust yourself. If you have fear or doubt, they won't work with you. It won't be authentic. It won't be truthful. You'll get a trickster spirit that will mess with you. And I think that's why, like, a lot of people in the spiritual community, they don't say this. They don't say, like, this is how you work with spirit. They don't say, like, warning, okay, like, warn, you have to be careful. And do the work first before you work with any spirit, even your ancestors. Your ancestors will protect you and they will guide you. But remember, this is your journey and this is your experience, your path. So you really have to know what you're doing, honestly.
And I'm curious if this has kind of been your experience too, Remy, especially when it comes to deity work or experiences that I've had. Like last year, I had an experience encountering a Valkyrie and stuff like that. What I would say that most of the time when I have a strong experience of a deity or some kind of other entity, usually it's not something that I'm looking for. It's like they pick you, and it's powerful. And so it's almost like it's like you can't, it's like they command your attention kind of thing. And so it's interesting because I have had those experiences of like some of these trickster kind of energies, and it's weak. It feels weak, and I don't know how else to describe it. Like where it's almost one of those encounters where all of a sudden, say you think you're having an encounter with an angel or something like that, and then it's like it's lackluster and you find yourself doubting that experience. And I will tell you right now, it was not an angel. You know what I mean? And so probably something screwing with you. Now, when I had an experience seeing a Valkyrie, I just about shit my pants because it was like terrifying. Right? Like, and so a lot of these whatever, like really strong entities, like strong light beings, they have a commanding presence. They have a very what would you say, like bewildering, like awe-inspiring presence. If you encounter
Yeah.
like the real, in my opinion, it's like, like you won't be questioning what you encounter.
It really changed. They change the atmosphere of your environment is something that you can pick up on immediately. Like when there's when I think that's very true though. All the goddesses and the deities that I've worked thus far were all spirit guided. They were all like coming to me because I was willing, or that I was allowing to be an open channel to speak their truth. So the gates that I'm doing right now, the Babylonian gates, was because I opened that door to say, okay. And then they started to flow through to me as a channel, because now I'm opening that portal for them to flow through. But they actually made their way to me, and I had no idea that this was something that I was going to do or embark on. But their frequencies literally change the environment of the room. Like you feel the frequencies shift. I get very woozy, like I almost like lose my balance.
Yep.
And it's very weird. Like if I stand up when I'm working with the spirit, I feel like I'm gonna fall over. I had moments where like I literally was about to faint because the energy was just so big and so much. And they change the entire atmosphere. You can feel it being lifted. It's as if like there's no gravity. Like it's such a strange feeling, but it's a feeling that you really can't you can't doubt. Like you mentioned, you can't doubt a powerful light being's frequency. You can't, like, if it's a trickster, and if it's like a goddess or a deity that is coming through and choosing to work with you.
Mm-hmm. I feel like too, in part of this discernment, one thing that I've noticed also is that your subconscious mind will indicate to you if something is not what it's posing as. So it was really interesting because I remember, and this is one for instance, I remember being in like halfway in the sleep wake state, and I remember encountering, it was like some kind of dark energy, like trying to make itself look like the clown from It, if you know what I'm talking about. Was it Pennywise? And it was like, and I just kind of looked at it because I feel like at this point the stuff doesn't really scare me very much. I'm, especially like that kind of stuff, because it's really kind of much like lower realm stuff, and it's just kind of like, okay, whatever, it's screwing with me. And I saw this little zipper on the side of its head. And so I just reached up, I walked up to it, and I just pulled the zipper down real slow. And then underneath it was like this little, like impish looking thing or something like that. And I was like, get out of here, So,
Yeah.
So your subconscious mind will let you know, or like something will feel very off if you connect with something and then like the eyes look wrong. Like if you're clairvoyant and you see through the mind's eye, and usually, and I just want to give this disclaimer too, that most of the things that I see, and I don't know about you, Remy, but I would say 90% of it is in the mind's eye. Maybe 10% of it is actually like in my environment, like actually outside of me. But usually the subconscious mind will give you some kind of indication that this thing is faking, or it's somehow posing as something that it's not, and always be aware of that. Keep your wits about you when you're trying to encounter some kind of energy like that.
Yeah, fully agree. I would shit my pants if she was posing as It, to be quite honest, because I would probably punch it in its face and run. Not okay.
Too funny.
Oh my God.
Do you guys have anything else? We can certainly do this again too. This is super fun to talk psychic shop with you, so I'm happy to do it.
I know. It's definitely a big topic. It's very broad too.
Yeah.
Someone says thoughts on That's on star seeds. Honestly, I don't know much about star seeds. I don't know about you. I don't know. I don't know much about them. I don't really think I tap into star seed frequency at all.
It's not really my thing either. I've actually felt kind of guided away from it. Um,
Yeah.
the information I got from my guides was pay attention to the planet you're on, which my guide is kind of snarky like that. You know what I mean? But
Yeah.
not that, you know, like, and if it resonates with you, like, I'm never going to say, you know, don't pursue whatever is on your path that you need to figure out. But I just think there is focus on this planet first, I think, you know, and because you are an earth being, right? You're from the universe, you're from the whole damn thing, you know. And so if you look at it as I'm a Pleiadian or, you know, whatever versus an earthling, I don't know, that's kind of my thought.
Yeah, honestly, I really don't channel that energy, and I feel like if I don't channel it, or if I'm not being guided to it, I'm probably not guided to it for a reason. And I'll be honest, uh, I know shit all about it, to be quite honest. I'm sorry, I can't answer.
Yeah. Well, and I kind of look at it too, right? Like if the Pleiades, for instance, was my concern, I look at it as like I'd probably be incarnated there versus being
Yes,
incarnated on Earth, you know. And so
here.
I got to
Yeah,
learn the Earth lesson is kind of how I think of it.
yeah, yeah.
Ooh,
What?
Jan asked about Green Man. I love Green Man. Green Man's
Oh,
actually one of my favorites. It's cool that you brought him up. He's one of my favorites. I love that poem. I think I shared it with Remy at one point
yeah.
too.
After
Sometimes a
the
wild
mandala
god.
reading, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. So it's called sometimes a wild god or a wild god or something like that. But it's by Tom Hurons, and I love Green Man energy because he's so um, I don't know, like it's kind of like a little bit mischievous, but in the fun sort of way. When you connect with Green Man, like you'll see like wildlife will show up almost every time. So like I was talking to Remy actually about Green Man in one of like right after one of her mandala readings, and I came outside and there was like 9 deer sitting in my
Yeah.
backyard, like just looking at me, and it's just you like have that sense where all of a sudden the crown starts to buzz and you get the little shiver up your neck. And Green Man's kind of funny too because he kind of likes to look at you through the windows. It's just like a really really
Oh
cool
my
energy.
God, I can't believe you said that because every time like I'm in like here there's where I do my videos, there's a window right there, and I always see birds. Like birds will come and they'll fly either across the window or they'll sit by the tree and they'll just look at me. I have my bathroom window, my bedroom window, and birds will just sit there and just stare at me. And I'll see cardinals, blue jays will just come and just like hover and just stare and they'll go. And I'm like, why do I always catch them through the window? So it's interesting. I never figured out that it could be the Green Man until you said that. It was like a confirmation for me. And I'm like, oh my God, it is him.
But I'll never, you know, it's funny because there's a tree really really close to this window right here where I'm sitting, and I'll never see anything. I start doing a reading, all of a sudden there's birds pecking at the window, or like there's a squirrel sitting there looking at me, and it's just like you just kind of have that sense that there's something to it. And a lot of times, if it feels just kind of a little bit like a ha ha he I'm here kind of thing, that always feels like Green Man energy to me. Like always kind of keeping nature present. I find too that a lot of times if you connect with Green Man energy, if you're doing meditations and stuff, like you'll just get these, you'll just see like leaves of grass or plant life, or you know, it's always like kind of these depictions of you know, like of the flora and flowers and stuff. You know,
Yeah.
it's really really it's cool energy. Um, and Amruta is asking, what is Green Man? Green Man is kind of like a nature deity, or
Yeah.
it's even hard to kind of call him a deity because it's not like that kind of energy. It's that's why I always recommend people to read that poem by Tom Hurons, because it's like he's very unassociated with like hierarchies and things like that. It's very much like a nature spirit.
Yeah, and he's very, very playful. Very playful. Really funny too. Like he has humor to it. Humor to his energy. And what did you say? He reminds you of the guy, the wizard from Lord of the Rings with the bunny, with the rabbits. I forget his name.
Radagast, yep, like that
Radagast.
kind of
Yeah,
energy, just like
yeah,
kind of like just goofy, like kind of unconcerned
Yeah.
with like earthly, well, not earthly. I mean, I guess it's unconcerned with like human problems. You know, like he's
Yeah.
just kind of like, it's all good out here.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm good where I am. So,
Yeah, a forest spirit, kind of like Pan. Yep, just very much like that
yes.
way.
Yeah. Someone asked, how do you feel, or how do you differentiate other people's energy versus yours? That's a good question. I don't know if you want to answer that first, and then I'll kind of say my take on it.
I feel like it's still a work in progress, and a lot of times I don't really know until after. So something that used to happen to me all the time when I was seeing clients still for therapy was that all of a sudden I'd get like this big wave of anxiety, and then my person who would come in next would be like, I was having a panic attack out in the waiting room, and then it would kind of get pieced together for me after the fact. I would say I'm still kind of working on that a little bit and differentiating what exactly is mine and what exactly is other people's.
Yeah.
But ultimately, I feel like if you're experiencing something and then all of a sudden it very, very quickly goes away, that's a pretty good indicator that it might be someone else's too. Because usually the stuff that feels like it's very authentically my emotions seem to linger for a long time. The things that are just like quick just kind of feels like it's almost like an energy just passing through.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. I'm the same way. Like, especially, I know you feel it too after when you're doing a reading, because you're channeling the energy of other people's, especially within the collective. So you feel it's literally as if energy is hitting you and then passing through. And as soon as it passes, that's your indication that it's not your energy. It's not your emotion, especially that, because for empaths and intuitives, like, you feel other people's emotions in that time. Even like you, when you're a psychotherapist, even listening to a friend's problem, when you're talking with your friends, like, you intake their energy because you're in the moment, you're feeling what they're feeling, and then that moment will pass, that emotion will pass. So it's interesting because I never realized that until when I was conscious of being an empath. Before, I always took the emotions of other people as my own, and I started to think that that was me, when in fact it wasn't, and it actually started to become very confusing and very toxic for me. So I just had to simply come into the awareness that it wasn't mine and let it go. So let it pass instead of let it linger and question it or try to absorb it or bring it in, because it would not integrate it. It would not integrate with me and it wouldn't sit well in my space. So you have to come into the conscious awareness that it's not yours, and it will pass through. So be present whenever you're talking to other people or being around other people. I found that I get very anxious in public places is when I realized that I was an empath, was when I started to feel very anxious in public places and start to intake other people's emotions, was in public. And I'm like, I'm not usually that kind of person. I'm not usually like a very anxious person in public. So when that started to occur, it started to give me a heads up that, okay, I've opened this gate and now I can feel other people's emotions, and I just need to let it pass, need to let it go through me because it's not mine. So that's something that I came into the realization of, and how you can differentiate.
Oh yeah, I'm totally with you. Crowds are very, very difficult for me because it feels like it just feels like rapid mood cycling the whole entire time. You know what I mean? It's just
Hits you like a
don't
brick.
like it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I like there's some tricks for that. I think sometimes you can kind of I like to visualize the Magneto helmet from X-Men like coming down over my head, like trying to block that stuff out. But even that sometimes is not really enough. Like you still kind of, like if you're tapped in, you're just tapped in. And then I guess in my mind it's just kind of like, okay, well, this is me, so I'll just deal with
it. Exactly.
Yeah.
It's so interesting. These are all really great questions.
Michelle asked about past life regressions. The only thing I would say about that is I think while past life information is really interesting, I don't always recommend like trying to force past life information. I would say that if you're going to get past life information, allow it to just kind of come naturally. For me, if I get past life information, it usually comes through dreams, and it's stuff that I need to know. And I always feel like past life stuff is like on a need to know basis, right? And a lot of the stuff that you've lived through, you don't need to know, nor do you really want to know.
Yeah, I'm the same way. Let it come naturally. And I feel like past life information comes in because you are experiencing something today in your today experience, because you have experienced something similarly in the past that you need to look at, and it can help you in your present moment. So I feel like the past information comes in to help you in something that you are experiencing today, so that it can help you heal it, look at it, transmute it, and move forward in your life. So I don't always recommend, like you, past life regression unless it comes to you naturally. And
Uh-oh, did we lose you, Remy? Yeah, maybe for a second. Oh, we got you back. We got you back.
Here,
Just a little
someone asked if we would ever try ayahuasca or DMT.
I always tell people I see enough crazy shit without consuming any kind of substance to see it. I honestly, I see enough weird stuff without any substance that honestly I'm actually kind of terrified of taking something like that, because it's bad enough right now. I'm not saying that, like, I understand the impulse to do so, but I think also recognizing. So this is kind of interesting. I have a friend who is quite interested in acid, and like very much of kind of like the Terrence McKenna mindedness of it. Like just kind of like as a seeker and so on and so forth, and seeking experience. And he's done it safely, and that's been fine for him. But the thing that's really interesting to me is that, so like, for instance, we've talked a lot about the seeing of, like psychedelic colors, right? And so how he'll say, like, when he takes acid, he'll start to see like the swirling colors, and you'll see the purple clouds and the blue clouds and the greens and so on and so forth. You can do that all naturally. You can do that through meditation. I see that stuff all the time in meditation. For instance, my mom has been meditating more. She's starting to see the colors now too. You know what I mean? And so it's like, I don't think that that's withheld from anybody. I would just say, a really, really cheap and safe way of doing it is just meditating a whole bunch, and you'll start to see a lot of the same stuff that people see on acid. I feel like acid and ayahuasca are just kind of the quick route.
Yeah, I've heard some beautiful experiences from people that have done ayahuasca. There was, I guess, the testimony from someone who was addicted to heroin. And then they tried ayahuasca for the first time, and it helped them with their addiction. And they've actually only done ayahuasca once and never again. And it just cured them of their addiction to heroin based on the things that they saw. And it released, I don't know, chemically it released something within their brain that made them feel really happy. And they were able to like use it ongoingly. And so I understand the want and the desire to use ayahuasca, but like you, I see crazy shit all the time in my dreams, when I'm awake, when I'm in meditation, that I think I would be really terrified actually to do ayahuasca. I don't know what I would see, and I don't know the person that I would be afterwards. There's also people that I know, one person that I've read online, I don't know them personally, but have actually died when doing ayahuasca. So like, do you know the source of where it comes from? Are they adding something to it? One person had a heart palpitation and they died because their heart was racing too much. So there's always like a risk that you take with that I feel like your body can naturally experience on its own. Like, we have the chemical DMT already within our system, and you can access it through meditation and enhancing your consciousness. So again, like you said, it's like a quick route, but it's also a very risky route because you don't know how your body will react to that at all. and like you experience like you throw up, and they're like, oh, that's all the purging experience that you go through. And I'm like, no, when you throw up, that's not a purge of your spirit. Like, no, that you're throwing up because it is disgusting. Like, it's disgusting. So you're throwing up. Now I have done shrooms. Like, I've done shroom tea quite a few times, actually. I actually just enjoy shrooms because they grow. I don't know, they grow and you just like take it. And it was just like, I don't know. It was very fun. I don't know how else to put it. It was just fun. I didn't see anything. I didn't experience anything very spiritually enlightening, but I was just with a friend of mine and we just connected and we just laughed the entire time. So, I mean, that's the extent of my shroom experience, but I didn't go on a spiritual journey or anything like that on that. So.
And I think that is vibrationally a much better reason to take drugs, is to do it for fun. Yeah. Because so like there really is something to this, guys, and I promise it was the same thing that we were talking about, like trying to induce past life regression and like, you know, trying to invoke deities and so on and so forth. Man, like just be so careful sometimes with like what you're trying to push through. Like that whole notion of trying to push through a spiritual experience. Ooh, like that to me sometimes can be like playing with a Ouija board. You know, it's the same kind of sense. Like you're just trying to have an experience, and that's, you know, like so many people will be like, we were teenagers and we just wanted to see what would show up, so we started playing with the Ouija board, just, you know, see what happened. It's like, man, when you open yourself up to just any old experience, sometimes you just get you get things you don't want. So
yeah, exactly. So, you know, the natural way is the best way, and I see, just like Rob, we see enough crazy shit naturally. So that's enough.
And that's the cool part, right? So if you start to do that via meditation, and I promise you, it's not going to take you forever. If you meditate daily and you give it a few months, you know, and I know that sounds like a big investment, you will start to see stuff more consistently. I mean, like the Buddhist monks talk about that kind of stuff all the time. They don't really like put as much clout as we do, and like within our spiritual tradition, they're just kind of like, oh yeah, that like you have psychic experiences, like no big deal. But it comes with meditation for sure.
Yeah, someone said Lord Shiva from ancient Indian mythology was known to use weed. That's another thing. Like, honestly, I used to smoke all the time. I used to smoke marijuana every day, probably 8, 9, 10 times a day. And it was in the beginning of my spiritual awakening, but I was guided to stop using it. So I think it was like there for like a short amount of time on my journey. And then I didn't need it anymore. I don't know. It definitely helped to expand my mind, expand my consciousness. And it did help me with depression, actually. It helped me sit in my own truth, in my own space. And I was able to connect deeper with myself because I don't know, it opened a different avenue for me. But I was guided to stop using it. And I don't smoke unless I'm like maybe in a social environment and I'm like, oh, one puff here or there, but not the way that I used to smoke. I don't know. I think it served its purpose at the moment. And then it just kind of like, Spirit's like, yeah, you don't need it. So.
Yeah. I think the thing with marijuana is that I think it's one of those things where it kind of just has a little bit of like a diminished return over time, where I think it helps people for a while, like where it helps, you know, like maybe calm the anxiety or helps with the depression and so on and so forth. But there's actually a lot of clinical information that there's kind of a little bit of a turning point where actually it starts to become sort of anxiety inducing, or it starts to actually become a little bit of a depressant. And so like in the same way that if somebody were taking antidepressants or something like that, it's not necessarily something that you want to be on for your entire lifetime. It's like you might want to use it for a period of time that might be difficult, or use it like as a means to an end or something like that. But then eventually sometimes it's just time to move on with whatever it is. I don't know, that's my perspective, but I certainly wouldn't shame anybody for smoking or anything.
Yeah, no, me neither. I agree with you. Rosa asked, how can I release the witch hunt energy? Ooh, that kind of came up in my reading yesterday with Goddess Ningal. That's interesting. That's a very emotional subject for me, with like my ancestors, my great grandmother Nyla being a healer back in her day, and the goddesses and the deities that we connect to were ridiculed for being who they were and murdered and killed for that. I think the witch hunt energy has always been there, and it's prominent more so today. I think more people feel it today, now that we're stepping into that energy and really feeling our ancestors and really feeling the energy that we're stepping into, and our self-empowerment and our independence, and we're standing up against against the adversaries that we're experiencing and the backlash from it all. And this goes back to what we were talking about and why we wanted to do this in the first place, Rob, is talk about we needing to stand up for ourselves. This is our personal power. This is our personal strength. And so we experience the witch hunt every day of our lives, whether we're on YouTube or without YouTube. You know, like I have a support system. I'm sure you do too, Rob, like with your family. Like my family supports what I do. My friends support what I do. Even some of my coworkers in my Muggle life, like they know what I do and they support it. But there's always like that one person, like I remember this one person in my friends group, it was a friend of a friend. And my friends were like, oh, Reem does tarot. And they were like supporting me and all this stuff. And one of them was like, oh, tarot, don't bring that in my house. Like I would never allow that energy in my house. So she was like on that witch hunt frequency. Yeah. And I didn't entertain it. I was just like, you know what? I don't want to invest in proving myself or explaining myself to other people. I just stand in my personal power. Unless this person attacks me, I have no reason to prove myself to anyone or to try to be someone else or to be something different than who I really am. So that I'm lucky, like that person didn't say anything more to me. All I did was just stand in my personal truth and my personal power. Like my response to her was that, well, this is who I am. And if you don't like it, that's okay. Like I would never bring tarot to your house then, you know, like I would just never do that. If you don't like that, that's like that's your boundary and I'm cool with that. As long as you like respect me, I'm okay with that. I personally think, like to answer your question, Rosa, for me, it's just standing in my personal power, standing in my independence as strongly and as much as strong as I can. I will do that. Stand in my personal truth.
Well, you know, my take on it, I think, is very much related to everything that we talked about today. You know, to me, like that very notion of a witch hunt, right? To me, kind of signifies this idea of looking at yourself with this kind of prey mindset, right? Because who gets hunted? Prey gets hunted.
Right.
And I think that what we're ultimately talking about is like shadow integration is about connecting with your inner predator. You know what I mean? Like, right. Looking at yourself not as like this prey animal that's being hunted, but like, you know, hey, I've got some goddamn teeth too. If you hunt me, I'm gonna bite you. You know,
I got claws. Don't worry.
I got some claws. You know, and that's what I'm talking about when I, you know, like a really like nice and shiny way of talking about it is talking about it like your own self-advocate. You know what I mean? Like a down and dirty, naturalistic way of looking at it is like remembering that you're a predator. You know what I mean? Like that there is that you're not something that's simply going to be hunted and whatever, walked over, beaten down, taken advantage of, and that you're going to fight for yourself. So a lot of it, what we're talking about is connecting with your anger, is about like connecting with your fighting spirit.
Yeah, 100%. And I felt that energy yesterday. I was like trembling. I could feel like the ancestors' rage and that frequency on the rise, to fight back, to show your teeth, to show your demons, to show your darkness, and don't be scared of it. Hear me roar, you know, feel my flame, feel my fire, and don't be ashamed of that.
Yeah.
For it.
It's really self-empowering, you know, because and you start to recognize the more that you let that energy, again, like that energy of sacred rage, that energy of sacred anger working, it's magic on you, because I do look at it as magic and that it is alchemization. Yeah. Just like the commanding presence that you start to have. And the thing that's funny is that if you identify as a person who's intimidated, all of a sudden people start getting intimidated of you. And I remember like doing that work and getting more in touch with my anger. And I remember walking through the store one day, and this kid was misbehaving, and the mom walks up to me, right, and she goes, will you tell my son to stop misbehaving? And I go, why? That's your son. She's like, well, you're just this big intimidating guy. And it's so funny to me because like I don't look at myself as being big and intimidating at all, right? But you start to kind of just exude that more commanding presence. I think a lot of times energetically it's around you, but even so, like, your posture starts to straighten up, you start to stand tall, like all that kind of stuff that just exudes that level of, pardon my French, I am not to be fucked with. And
Yeah.
people resonate with that, and that I think is a big part of how you kind of end that witch hunt mentality.
Yeah, and that's something that I've recognized about myself, and actually people started to recognize. Even Russell was like, "Wow, you look different. Like you look straighter. You look like you're being more confident, stern. You're standing your ground. You're very fiery." And I've always had this inside of me, but I was always scared of it. I was always like, I don't know, like if I do this, like what will people think of me? And ever since I did my shadow work, I changed, and I was able to embrace that aspect of myself. And even my friends are like, wow, you just seem more confident and more secure in yourself. And I'm like, hell yeah, I am. It's so helpful and it's powerful. So that's a really good thing to bring up. Wine said your power is your peace. Exactly. I like that. Yeah.
Agreed. Yeah, that was around the point that I started calling you Khaleesi. And if anybody ever wonders why I call you Khaleesi, is because there's this character in Game of Thrones, Daenerys, who Reem embodies. So that's she's like your avatar.
She is. I know. And then I changed my hair to red, and you're like, your hair is red. I'm like, I know, I'm totally Khaleesi right now. And it's so interesting because when I was watching her, when she was in the pit of fire and she didn't get burned, I actually cried my eyes out, because I was so, like, I felt that power and I felt that peace, and I felt, because I'm a Sagittarius, like I am that fire frequency. And so I totally being guided to embody it raw in its totality. So I wept, man. That's like my favorite scene. Like I'll put it on replay sometimes. I'll search it up on YouTube to play it again because it's such a powerful moment. It hits you in your soul.
Yeah, she's definitely one of my favorite characters of all time, and I think that it's such a cool journey that she goes on, where she really kind of finds her empowerment over the course of all those seasons. Like you just kind of see her getting stronger and stronger and stronger and stronger. So very cool.
Yeah. And Rob is Tormund, if you don't know who he is on Game of Thrones, but he is 100% Tormund. Like he has that really funny, comical humor to him that a lot of people like don't get, but he's actually such a funny character. But he has that like deep down warrior, like don't fuck with me because I will just like rip you to shreds. So like he will, like he's a strong guy. So like that's like your embodiment of him. So I love that.
Thank you. Yeah, I love that character. He's so funny. Just like all the jokes. It's just I love the jokes, man. I live for the comic moment. I do truly.
So funny.
Steve, I can't say I know anything about the pentagram and the birth chart. I'm so not good with astrology and birth charts. I mean, I barely have an understanding of my own. I'm an intuitive reader, and Russell always baffles me because he knows so much about the astrology, and I just don't, and not that I haven't tried a little bit, but at the same time too, I don't necessarily feel as called to. So sorry, I'll leave you hanging on that one, Steve, but I can't say
I don't know much about my birth chart either. Like I have an app, and I had to go through a website to calculate my birth chart. That's like my extent of knowledge, to be honest.
Yeah.
Eve, you have a resting bitch face. That's hilarious. I don't know if I do. I don't know. A couple of people told me I do, but I'm like, really? I don't think so. That's hilarious.
That is funny.
yeah, I don't know, like I don't have like a desire, not a desire, or like I'm not really being led to learn so much about birth charts and astrology in that regard, even though like I can see how connected it is to who you are and how helpful it is on how the planets are being navigating, you know, the cosmos and how it is with you. But I just go to I go to Russell for all of that, to be honest. Like he's like the guy that I go to where I'm like, hey, what's going on with the planets? Because I feel X, Y, and Z. And he'll just like tell me, well, it's probably because of so and so. And half the time I'm just like, okay, I didn't really understand that, but okay.
Yeah, same here. I feel like it's just I know about as much as I need to know, and I try to stick with that.
What about synchronicities? Do you take it seriously? That's an interesting question. I mean, so I see synchronicities as messages from spirit. Like, I don't pay attention to them as much as I used to, if I were to be like honest. I feel like in the beginning, when you're like spiritually awakening, you're like, oh my God, I saw this, I saw that, I saw this, what the heck is going on? Now it's just kind of like a wink from the universe, and you're like, all right, I get it. Like, I get it. Okay. But when I'm in a phase in my life and I need help, and I'm more like aware of like what I'm praying about or what I'm asking about, I'll see certain synchronicities that repeat time and time again. And it'll be like one synchronicity. Like 555, for example, is a synchronicity that I keep seeing right now over and over and over and over again. It recently started to change. So when you start seeing different synchronicities, that's when you should be mindful and aware that something has actually shifted and changed for you when you start to see a different synchronicity. If you keep seeing the same thing over and over and over and over again, and it's not changing, one specific number that's not changing for you, then you know that you're not changing and shifting, that your frequency is the same. So I always see that as an opportunity for advancement and for moving and shifting. So if you keep seeing the same thing, you're not changing and moving. You want those synchronicities to change. You really do. That's how you know that your frequency has shifted. So do I take it seriously? Yes. But again, not every synchronicity is a sign. That's also something that you need to use your discernment on. Sometimes it's just a synchronicity. It's just a wink from the universe saying, hey, but it's not always a message. It's not always something to be looked into.
Sometimes I kind of think of it, I guess I kind of think of it like that a little bit too, where it's not always a message. That sometimes I almost look at it. You remember the movie The Matrix? Like it's just kind of it's a little glitch in the Matrix, or something like that, where you just kind of pick up on something like that. And to me, it's kind of I don't know, like just sort of a reminder to stay present. I know the other day I went to the post office and there were 3 cars, and one was 333, the next was 444, and the third was 555. And I'm like, I see you. That's I have. And that's usually kind of the dialogue that I have. For me, I guess the synchronicities and numbers and things like that connect with me a little bit less. But like I had mentioned earlier, that I had passed a sign that said there's no turning back. And I was like, okay, like that's a pretty overt message. And so I feel like I guess I kind of categorize them as like how overt is this message? You know what I mean? Like how deeply does it resonate with me? Because some of the stuff is just, who knows what exactly is going on. And sometimes even too, like you might just be noticing it, and it's like, do you even know if it's a synchronicity for you? Because maybe the 333, 444, 555 was for the next guy. I don't know. But like if it feels like it connects with you, like right in the heart, that's how I always feel. Like if I really connect with it, it feels like it's right in the chest. I'm like, okay, that's the message for me.
Yeah, and sometimes like you manifest the signs too. Sometimes, like especially if you're coming from a place of fear, you can actually manifest the things that you very much fear. So sometimes like you can see if you are fearful of something, and I don't know, I'm just going to use this for an example. If you're a hypochondriac and you fear cancer, and then all of a sudden cancer, the word pops up everywhere, and then it's on the news, or you hear someone in your family that had cancer, or someone like that had cancer. that's because it's fear-based. It's fear-induced because you're constantly thinking about it. So it's very easy to fall into that rabbit hole. So you have to take yourself out of that and see, where are these messages and the synchronicities actually coming from? Am I creating them because I'm fearful? Are they actual signs for me? Are they for me or for other people? Where am I in my journey that this is helpful for me? So it's, you need to be very much aware of it, I think. Someone asked about Kali, the goddess Kali Ma. Yeah, don't mess with her, is I gotta say. She is a destroyer, and she's also a liberator. So don't mess with her, honestly. She's one of those like goddesses that if you really need her, she'll come to you, but don't ever call on her, is something that I've like learned. Don't ever call on her. She'll come to you when you really need something, and she'll come in, and she'll come in as quickly as, like, she'll come in quickly, she'll leave quickly. I feel like her energy doesn't linger around, but you'll know when she's there. And I think, Eve, you said it best, like she'll cause tower moments, and tower moments are quick, and that's her energy. She's very fast with destroying, but in the destruction there's liberation. So don't mess with her. Personally, I've never called on her. I wouldn't want to, I don't want to invoke her energy unless like I really need something. And I feel like if I really needed something, then she would just come and get that shit done, and she would like go on to other things. So she comes to you. Don't ever invoke Kali Ma. And if someone tells you otherwise, they don't know what they're doing, because I think you would invoke a trickster frequency, to be honest. I don't think she would come. She's honestly, some goddesses are really like, you don't want to mess with them. So again, be careful with her.
I think that's true. I think that's very true of a lot of the deities, because like I said, I mean, very rarely, I mean, and I really don't try to invoke them. You know what I mean? Like, for instance, I did that poetic Ada, prose Ada video some time ago, where I was kind of like a let's connect with Odin kind of thing. Well,
Yeah.
The reason why I did that was because in meditation I started seeing images of Odin. I started seeing, like the hat and the and the beard and the like the staff with the with the two ravens and stuff. And then it was like getting more and more apparent, and I felt like, okay, so this is an energy to connect with. And again, that to me felt like it was very much like, if it reaches out to you, that's kind of a different story. I wouldn't, and this is just my opinion, I just am not really a firm believer in trying to seek those experiences out, because I think a lot of those negative energies really try to capitalize on your desire for that, right? Because it's like being thirsty for a spiritual experience. Now, I would say to a person, if you're invoking Kali, right, like, why are you invoking Kali? Like, that's a very powerful energy to try to invoke. So, are you invoking Kali for your own amusement? Do you really think that Kali's going to show up to entertain you? Probably
Hey,
not.
let's play. Yeah.
Are you fighting a war and you try to invoke Kali? She might show up. You know what I mean? Like, there's kind of differences. Like, she's probably not going to show up to help you quit smoking or something like that. You know?
Yeah. No. Yeah, don't fuck with her. Like, I have an altar with Goddess Inanna Ishtar, because I connect with her, and I would love to work with her more. So we're on the basis of trying to build trust. I'm trying for her to gain my trust, because she is a powerful goddess to work with. So I have an altar. I have some lapis lazuli. I burn incense. So she's actually over there. That's my altar. And she'll come to me. I rarely go to her. I just give my gratitude every day and just say, thank you. But she's a goddess that came forward to me when I did the gate reading. I was guided to do her reading as first gate. And I didn't know that I was doing all the gates. I just thought that I was doing a Goddess Inanna Ishtar reading, and she just wanted to come through. And she actually started to open the window more and more and more for more of these energies to come through. So that was my initiation, so to speak, from her to say, okay, like I invite you in. And I feel like right now I'm building trust with her. So it's been a very interesting journey so far working with her. And there are goddesses and deities that will do that. They will, you know, pull you forward and say, okay, like let's work together because there's a purpose. And I feel like trust is like the very first thing that needs to be established. It's like any relationship, right, Rob? Like when you have with like people, like what do you do first? You establish trust. So it's interesting. Someone had a question about justice. Is justice, what did you say? Is justice mercy or revenge? Well, I think people get justice very mixed up. I think like, especially like if someone did you wrong, people are like, I want justice on that person. I don't like this person because of what they did to me. I want justice on this person because they did me dirty or they did me wrong. And I feel like all that justice requires is love, I think. And I think that when you have justice, like you see justice with the scales, right? When you have something done to you, you feel that pain and you feel like, okay, I want that person to, I don't know, receive their karma or whatever like that. I feel like that's coming from a place of like hate. I honestly think that's coming from a place of like, I want that person to experience what I experience. I want that person to feel pain. I want that person to feel so and so. When you have that, what is there for the universe to do? You know what I mean? Like if you have that already out there, you're already sending resentment out to the universe. You are already sending out that energy, and justice in the universe is like, well, you need to get out of the way. What do we need to do here? These are the scales. This is what the person did to you. There was injustice done to you, but now you're putting hate and resentment on the energy. What is there for us to do? You need to take out that resentment. You need to take out that hate. You need to just send love to the other person and see what the universe does to balance the scales. And I don't think it's anything bad or revengeful or vengeful that the universe would do to the other person. I think that people will eventually get their karma and learn from the experience, or they'll go through something similar that they done to you will get done to them, but it won't be so vengeful. I think we have this mentality that karma is like this vengeful entity, but it's really not. I think that justice is a place of love and it doesn't need anything from you. It's this notion of let go and let God, let go and let the universe.
Yeah. I think there's a real big difference between justice and retribution, exactly like you were saying, because I think in a very emotionally immature way, it's kind of like how like when little children, if another kid in line at lunch at school or something like that steps on their toe, well, that kid's going to turn around and then step on that other kid's toe because they want to make them hurt like they do, right? And that's like a really, really immature emotional response. And trust me, that's not exclusive to children. Like a lot of adults find themselves still in that energy, but it's just like maybe it's more sophisticated, but it's still the same premise. You want to make that other person hurt. That's retribution, and that's like, very much like eye for an eye, you'll make the world blind kind of thing. And so I think justice is again really, really similar to what we were talking about earlier. It's about correcting things, correcting behavior so that people know that what they're doing is harmful and that it's not right. And that's how I look at justice. That's how I look at the legal system. That's the whole purpose of the legal system, as much as it's been convoluted. The whole point is that it's to prevent people from, causing further harm or doing further damage. That's how I look at justice.
Yeah. Russell.
Oh, hey, it's Russ. We didn't even summon him.
No, we just felt our energy. No, there's a delay. We're not ignoring you. There's like a delay of like 1 minute between Zoom and YouTube. But we were talking about you needing to come on to one of these chats and talk with us. I think honestly, I think I would probably cry if I saw Russell like here.
That's why we just got to talk a little bit beforehand, and then you can get the tears out.
I know. Next one, we need to Russ will need to download Zoom, and we'll do a session with Russell.
Yeah, from wherever he is in the world.
Yeah, he's probably like Rob or Reem didn't message me where it's going on.
Yeah,
because we have a chat going on. That's so funny. Our rune group. Oh my god, so much fun.
Yeah, it was a good time.
Are you doing you're doing another rune, you said?
Yeah, probably pretty soon. Gotta wait for the right timing. I feel very. Russell's been going so quickly with his runes, and it's like it's fast. But for me, it's kind of like I have to sit with them for a couple days and just sort of absorb and percolate for a little bit with whatever rules that's coming through. But yeah, probably pretty soon. I'm doing new ones.
Yeah. I was just assigned some more runes. Well, I was looking at one that I liked, and I guess Russell put like 3 of them that are kind of linked. So I feel like perhaps he was kind of assuming, based on the energy that he was feeling, that these runes were linked and connected. So one would link into one and the other. So I have like 3 of them that I'm gonna look into.
Oh, so cool.
Like, it's definitely outside of my comfort zone. Like, I definitely didn't think that I would ever be looking at runes or doing a collaborative deck. I just thought like, hey, this would be kind of cool to just tap into right now. And I honestly didn't think that it would be like this. I thought I would just be like, oh, this means this or this means that. And all of a sudden now it kind of unfolded into this like beautiful collaboration effort with everybody. And I love that. I love when things are very much unplanned, and because I don't like planning things. Like, I'm very much a Sagittarius where I'm just like, whatever, and if it just happens, it happens, and I'm all for it. But that's why it's so exciting to me, because I know now that it's divinely guided. You know what I mean? And it just kind of unfolded in a way of like, here you go. It's not what you thought it was. It's a little bit more, and you can do it. Here's your next project with everybody. So I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah, the magic of the experience is so cool. If you guys haven't checked out any of the rune, what are we calling it? The Rune Rakers is how the videos are titled as we put them out. You guys should watch them because they are pretty. Some of the stuff that's coming through is pretty cool, and it's pretty uncanny. It's very, very magical, and it's fun to kind of like have that sort of magical experience among a group of people, especially like the way that it all syncs up. There's been a lot of synchronicities in that for sure, and so
I know,
especially all the information that you were intuiting the other day about, like, you're like, the 9s of like, what's this with about like, 9 and everything's a 9, and you're talking
and
about
they showed me the hanged man hanging from a Yggdrasil tree, and I was like, who is this? I'm like, why did they show me a hanged man hanging from a Yggdrasil tree? And then you commented this, and I'm like, what? I'm like, no. And then I messaged Russell, and I'm like, did Odin really hang from a Yggdrasil tree for 9 days? And then I was waiting for you to respond on YouTube to see if like you both are telling me the truth. Like, don't me right now.
That's just what is so cool to me, because I have a little bit of, I have more knowledge about the myths. I'm familiar with the myths, but I don't know the runes very well at all. It's not something that I'm very familiar with, but I think it's so cool that you having very, very limited knowledge of that, of like the Norse mythology, and very limited knowledge of the Norse runes and so on and so forth. And then you're pulling these stories out. It's just like, it's too good. It is too good. So not to upsell it too much to you guys, but it's
crazy. I was shook. And what's interesting is that it definitely helped with my confidence too. Like, this is something that I'm not familiar with. This is something that is out of my comfort zone. But you have those moments too, Rob, where it's just like you channel something and it's like, oh, it just like, it tells a complete story that you had no knowledge about, and it's just like full confirmation. It really helps with your confidence, and you're just like, okay, like I'm not crazy. I'm not making shit up.
Yeah, that's a big part of the journey too. I think just overcoming that social anxiety,
Yes.
where it's kind of like, oh, do I actually say the crazy thought that I just had? And then that's when the magic happens. All of a sudden, something will occur to you. You tell it to another person, and they're like, yeah, no, that
Yeah.
really happened. That guy hung from the Yggdrasil tree for 9 days. That's like
Yeah.
his big part of his myth of how he developed and learned of the ruins for that sake. So that's just that's
And like
cool.
posting it for like thousands of people to see that like have this knowledge. So like if you say something wrong, like you're gonna be like ridiculed for it. So I was very scared to actually post it because I was like, oh my god, like Russell's gonna tell me I don't want you in this group anymore. Like you're talking about, and I would be like, I'm so sorry, like I messed up. So I didn't know like how it would be received. I was just like, well, there you go. There's 30 minutes of, blah, blah, blah. And I actually wanted to ask you, like, did he sacrifice his whole self in the tree? Like, was he suicidal? Like, or not suicidal, but did he like sacrifice himself, or was it just his eye?
So he hung from the tree. So the whole idea is that for him to actually intuit the knowledge of the
Yeah.
runes, he needed to hang from the tree. So in a sense, it is kind of like a symbolic suicide in essence, and
Okay.
that's why I think the myth is so. Yeah, and I really love Norse mythology because it is so rich and so deep. Because there's so much symbolism that if you really kind of know how to look at it, you can see a really deep symbolism. But it was like a death and a rebirth in essence, of
Okay.
him like having his development moment and actually like learning this ancient magic. It's just, I love it. I really love the myth. And Russell even said that the hangman had come up in my ruin also, which was the hang true ruin. So
That's
it was
right.
very cool.
That's what blew my mind, because I didn't, because you posted it a couple hours before I
Yep.
posted mine, and I was on my phone. I was actually charging my phone, and Russell messaged me and he said, oh, he linked me to yours, and I was like, oh cool, like he did his, let me get into mine. I didn't watch it, and I was like, let me get into my energy, let me go do mine. I'm totally like in the zone, let's go do it. So I did it, and then I watched your reading afterwards, and I was like, I can't believe like we did the reading the same day. We didn't watch each other's reading. We didn't even communicate that day at all. Like I didn't talk to
Yep.
her. And all of a sudden it's like I talk about this hangman hanging from a tree for 9 days. I had no idea what the hell I was talking about. And in Rob's video that he did before mine, that we had no idea of, was talking about the exact same thing. And you had the hangman, and you saw that rune in a dream. It's just
It's crazy because I didn't know what the rune was, and so I finger drew it, and I sent it to Russell. And he goes, "Oh, I know what that is." So it's just crazy. Yeah, you can't make it up. You really can't make it up. And it's so fun that we're doing these. Well, I guess you call them readings. They're not really readings, but we're trying to pull cards and intuit the
yeah.
meaning of it, and then you actually have that evidence of the magic. I love it. It's so
Yeah.
cool.
But
Yeah.
it helps too, actually. A few people on the video that I had posted, like it resonated with them on something that they were going through. So I thought that was really interesting and needed to be out there, to be showcased, not only the process, but also the message in the moment of what was actually coming through. People actually started to resonate with that. So I thought that was really cool how that works. But I love having it posted as kind of like a timestamp as to like when we pulled this energy. We have evidence of it. We can always refer back to it or go back to it. Because in the moment, like there was actually a lot of links that Russell was talking about and making with the rune after the fact that
Mhm.
I make during the reading, because I was just like, channeling this energy. But you view it later and you start to like pull in different things and connect them, and it just kind of all comes together. So I think making a video or making a reading about it, so to speak, is actually very helpful.
Yeah, I think so too. Very magical.
I know. Love it.
Well,
Okay.
thanks for coming, guys. Thank you so much. A
Yeah,
couple
thank
people
you.
bow out, but thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Oh, where did my chat go? Here we go. Yeah, this was fun.
Yeah.
So I think we're gonna bring in Russell next time when his internet is able to support, I guess, a stream like this. Hopefully, when you can, Russell. I think that would be really wonderful.
Yeah, I'd be so happy to do this more often. And thank you so much for hosting on your channel. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Be a guest.
Absolutely. Everyone go follow, subscribe to Rob if you haven't. Robstarot and Russell and Rio Karuk, and Eve's channel, Everlong Mystic, Untitled Tarot, Lauren B. I think Rio Karuk Patrick wrote everybody's name earlier, but if you haven't, please go do. It's so amazing. So we'll do a poll. I think we'll come up with some things, Rob, on some interesting topics, and then you guys can decide what our next topic would be. And I think it would be really fun. We'll do these more often.
Oh, so fun. Thanks, Riri.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. Bye. Thank you.
Bye, guys. See ya.
Bye.